Hey Froggy friends, Kirostyle here, welcome back to Umineko When They Cry. This is episode 7, Requiem of the Golden Witch. Welcome, welcome, and thank you those of you who are still joining me here on stream. We just finished the episode. Oh, hey Sai, thank you. We just finished the tea party, or the epilogue of episode 6, and now we're going to start episode 7, which is Requiem. And this one's a really interesting one. At the end of episode 6, we kind of found out that in this one, Castell is going to be the game master, which is kind of interesting, especially since Beatrice's tale seems to have been concluded, but it looks like Featherine still had some questions that she would like answered, and so she asked Castell to weave her another tale using the same game pieces. So this episode is going to be a bit different than the others, but that's kind of where it gets its charm. I really like this episode, but I admit there are some slow parts here, but there's a lot of really interesting stuff too, and if you guys haven't figured out the mystery behind Beatrice's secret and the, let's say, the culprits behind the Rokenjima mass murder, maybe this episode will give you a lot more extra hints where they start to sort of spell things out for you a little bit more to help you along. Which is kind of the point of episode 7, because just like for Featherine, she said she still had some questions left, and the purpose of this is to fulfill those answers. Although Castell's condition is that she wants to be able to basically do whatever she wants as the game master, which Featherine has agreed with as well. Alright, let's get started, Thank you for joining me. Episode 7, Requiem of the Golden Witch. The story is very obviously fictional and fantastic in nature. Any resemblance to existing individuals, organizations, locations, or instances is entirely coincidental. Earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, illusions to illusions, and dreams to dreams. A dream is something drawn in the sand between the coming and receding waves. Something so fragile, it's wiped blank every time a wave comes in. So the heartless might sneer, saying that drawing such things is useless and meaningless. However, no wave will ever come again to wipe away the dream she drew. And now that final beautiful dream of hers will not disappear for all eternity. Come, and try and picture it. It's as though the rays of the gentle afternoon sun on a warm spring day simply forgot to grow dim ever again. It truly is such a wonderful thing. Witness to your final dream. Publius Virgilia Muro. The suspects were gathered in a room, and several inquisitors of heresy were reporting on the results of their investigation. Their uniforms closely resembled those of Eisern Jungfrau, but they were slightly different. Also different were the badges signifying their department. Then came the sound of someone clapping their hands once. It was the lead female inquisitor. She was announcing that all reasoning had been completed. It has been shown, it is all quite clear. Know that the preceding logic has proven the non-existence of your alibi. At the other end of her pointing finger was a quivering maid with frightened eyes. Her name was... no. That's not important. What matters now is she could have entered the closed room study, where the victim was found whenever she pleased, and furthermore that her claimed alibi for the time of the crime had been proven to contradict the facts. Shaking, the maid tried to continue in her illogical pleading, but all her statements had already been seen through. With this, we conclude our proof of the whodunit and the howdunit. Know that your position as the culprit is now an unshakable fact. You must be joking. Why would I kill the master I loved and respected so? I have no motive, no reason. Who did it, and how? Know that establishing these is more than sufficient. Please allow me to speak. Know that motives are unnecessary in mysteries. The Inquisitor spoke coldly. After finishing her witch's prayer, Virgilia stepped back from the coffin, which lay on an altar bedecked with many beautiful roses. In her place, Battler moved to the front of the coffin, wearing his territory lord's cape. Though the cape was supposed to represent dignity and majesty, it somehow made Battler look smaller. Battler held a book with a majestic binding in his hand. It was a game record that had just been written. Or perhaps it was a tale. A game. Or else a fragment. Written in it was the dream that would be more enjoyable for her than any other. Battler pressed it against his forehead and contemplated for some time. Then he kissed it, and laid it gently in the coffin. It rested upon her chest. She looked like a little girl clutching her favorite stuffed animal as she drifted off to sleep. This is the sole tale I have to offer up to you. This tale will be shut up with you in your coffin for all eternity, so no one would be able to read it except for you, there in your coffin. Shut away in that cat box. The only unchanging, inviolable, eternal tale. This way, no one will be able to defile it. No one can deny it. And no one can argue against it. This is just between me and her. Just the two of us. Our one and only certain truth. Those bastards! The man dashed through the town wrapped in twilight. The daytime hustle and bustle of this beautiful village, which combined the traditional with the orderly and the classic style of the last century, now seemed like a mere dream. The orange setting sun was already hidden behind the clock tower, and the narrow alleyway was rapidly descending into darkness. As the gas lights began to turn on, they only made the darkness of the twilight stand all out more. The man sprinted. There was no time. He had to hurry. He had several experiments to do and things he had to check, and all had taken longer than he expected. Yes, there's no mistake there. The whodunit and the howdunit are more than enough in the mystery genre. In the mystery genre, the motive, or the whydunit, is given the lowest priority. To have a murder, you need to have a culprit, and he needs to commit a crime. Motive isn't required for that, so it's usually the most ignored element. In fact, these days, there are even some who call it unnecessary. If you find the culprit with nothing but the whydunit, that's no mystery. That's propaganda, however, just because of that fact, it doesn't mean you can neglect the motive, the heart. We both know how much fun she'll be having in her final sleep, so I doubt anyone could disturb it. After all, who could possibly disturb a sleeping child smiling at a happy dream? Come, it is time for us to leave. If we're too noisy, we'll wake her from her dream. You're right. What else should you do with a sleeping kid, except put a blanket on them, turn off the lights, and walk away quietly? After looking at the coffin one last time, Virgilia turned around quietly. Adler did the same, but then he stopped and turned to face the rose-covered altar. Adler offered up his final words within his heart. As long as those words didn't leave his mouth, no one would be able to tell what they were. However, those words of the heart caused Balor's expression to change several times. At first he frowned sadly, then his face clouded with remorse, then changed to a bitter, exasperated smile. It flashed through several varied expressions. And then the final expression that crossed his face was surprisingly a gentle smile. Something rose to Badler's lips. However, he bit it down. There could be certainly no words to describe the many feelings he kept in his chest. So saying anything aloud would probably be crude. Badler understood this and stopped himself from speaking once more with a wry smile. Thank you. Oh, I have done nothing to deserve your gratitude. I'll leave the rest to you. After seeing Virgilia nod back at him, Badler turned away from the altar one more time and left the chapel. Virgilia also disappeared, and with that, All disturbances that might have interrupted her blissful sleep had vanished. The Inquisitors of Heresy listened with calm, no, scornful gazes. They listened to the frantic babbling of the maid accused of murdering her master. However, nothing she said could bury the fault in her own alibi. They were all mere emotional arguments. I loved and respected the master so much. I had no motive for killing him. No matter how much she spoke, it only made her look more and more like a floundering true culprit struggling pathetically. The requirements for the whodunit and the howdunit had been satisfied. As for the whydunit, the motive, the heart, no matter how much she spoke of gratitude for her master, who had graciously given her a job when she'd be left by the wayside after various misfortunes, it didn't help her case in the slightest in the mystery genre. Therefore, her motive didn't matter. All of that could just be squeezed out of the culprit afterwards. An Inquisitor of Heresy took out a roll of parchment and held it forth, cutting off the maid's sobs and protests. This is how you committed the crime. Know that this indictment has been received by the Great Court and your arrest has been approved. Here is the warrant for your arrest. Motive is unnecessary. Know that such a thing is completely extraneous to the matter of pinpointing the culprit. Please allow me to speak. Know that we of the SSVD possess methods of forcing unrepentant criminals to reveal the truth. With these interrogation tools blessed by the powers of justice, we Inquisitors of Heresy will strap up your limbs, burn you, crush you, stretch you, and hang you, and in doing so, wring the red truth out of you. It is even necessary for you to confess. Aides, arrest that maid. It wasn't me. I didn't kill the master. No, no. Hold it right there. You've got the wrong culprit. A man kicked the door open and the Inquisitors were all shocked at the sight of him. Why are you here? Know that this case is no longer your responsibility. Quiet. You find one person without an alibi and just assume that she's the culprit. Do you really think there's no need for a motive, for a heart in a crime? Crimes are committed by people. There are no crimes without a heart. I'll never accept a theory that neglects the heart. Know that your obsession over the whydunit is simply embarrassing. The whydunit is unnecessary. Such a thing can be extracted easily through interrogation. Even the Great Court has already acknowledged that this woman is the culprit. True, the Great Court does assume that everyone besides the maid has an alibi, but that's just because they heard you say so, and they've mistaken your overconfidence and conceit for wisdom. If any of the other suspects loses their alibi, your evidence so far proves nothing. Just look at how pathetic some of these other alibis are. Did the clock in the reception hall chime midnight at exactly the right time? Did the dog by the back door bark at everyone? So you managed to prove the maid's alibi false. Congratulations. But does it end there? It may have been possible for her to do it, but does she have any motive at all? Are the alibis of the others absolutely perfect? This maid wasn't the only one with a false alibi. You have to keep on searching if you want to find the others. Was there some sort of grudge against the victim, or some money-related problem? Don't abandon motive. Don't abandon the heart. Dry mysteries where the motive can be just figured out later aren't worth anyone's time. If the maid isn't the culprit, then why did she fake an alibi? Even asking such a question is a waste of time. Know that we could just have to interrogate her, wring out the red truth, and have her sign in red blood to everything that happened at the time of the crime. Yeah, you probably can do that. You can just use that torture of yours to squeeze out everything frankly and objectively, as seen from the eyes of God. But you know what? I'll never accept mysteries and theories that lack heart. Yeah, oh no, he's hot! I already taken over the responsibility for this case. I even have a decree right here. Come now, aides. No, there's no reason to hesitate. I order you to arrest this maid. When she gave this order, her subordinates hesitated, looking back and forth between their superior and that man. I won't let you. The real culprit's a different person. It's possible to use motive to find them, and their alibi trick is an old one. You can't neglect the heart. There's no need for that. We just have to find the suspicious ones who could have committed the crime, interrogate them, and squeeze out the red truth. On the off chance they aren't the culprit, then we just have to interrogate the next suspect. You call that reasoning? Stand back! We will arrest that woman. Know that this maid is the culprit. It is forbidden for a servant to be the culprit. What? did you say? The words of power blasted away the aides trying to arrest the maid. Van Dyne's 20 rules, rule number 11. If you want to torture this maid, make sure you double-check the alibis for the second wife and her lover first. Those two already have a clear alibi for the time of the crime. That's an alibi? Damn it, a fool like you couldn't understand no matter how easy I make it for you. If you want to call yourself the head inquisitor, try and figure out at least that much for yourself. Until then, I'll be taking that maid's arrest warrant. Then what about you? Can you prove this maid didn't commit the crime? Know that she was clearly away from the kitchen at the time of the crime. What was she doing then, and where? She can't prove it, I can't prove it, you can't prove it, no one can. That's why we have no choice but to use these torture devices to interrogate her until the red truth is squeezed out. You could squeeze out as much blood and truth from the real culprit as you damn well please. However, I won't let you interrogate or torture anyone who isn't that culprit. This is why everyone says you're too soft. All the suspicious must be interrogated. That is how we Inquisitors of Heresy conduct our witch trials. That's right, we are Inquisitors of Heresy. Felling evil witches is our job. However, we mustn't risk hurting the innocent. We mustn't put them under suspicion. All humans have their own personal truths. Those should only be exposed when they commit crimes. We've been given the right to expose them, but there's one thing we can't do. What? No one, not even God, has the right to expose the innocent truths of those who have not sinned. The maid finally realized he was trying to protect her. I don't know who you are, but thank you. Very much. I'm really not the culprit. Yeah, I know. Your boyfriend said he'd be willing to give up everything to prove your alibi. You should thank him. That kid said that honor and reputation are worth nothing compared to you. But if he does that, then he'll... It won't come to that. Exposing the secrets between lovers is the job for third-rate magazines. That's not mystery. I'll never allow for heartless reasoning. Then for the first time, the man's sullen expression relaxed, and he patted the maid's head roughly. I'm sure you two will be happy together. Still, meeting together in secret while on the job is hardly praiseworthy. Try to keep that to a minimum. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. These words were heard only by the two of them. The man had learned of her innocence, which could only be proven by exposing the secrets of a pair of young lovers, and he had rushed about in search of a solution, resentful of the arrogance of those trying to expose us by forcible means. The point of theory-making is not to create a culprit, or to trample the truths that lie in the hearts of those who have not sinned. If you want to play the detective, don't neglect the heart. Otherwise, we're just intellectual rap artists. Like that Erica girl. Don't forget it. Ugh. When the man spoke, the Inquisitors no longer had any way to argue back. This man's name is Will, and yet that's not what everyone used to call him. Head Inquisitor of Heresy of the SSVD, the 8th District Repentance Enforcement Agency of the Great Court of Heaven. Wizard hunting right. Wizard hunting right. This is the last thing I have to pass on to you guys. If you want to be the next wizard hunting right, remember it. No matter what. Quietly. Quietly. The rain fell down. The rain of sadness dripped down the outer walls of the chapel, quietly washing away the dust of the world of the living. The chapel doors were open. During a wedding, only those with invitations are allowed inside. However, during a funeral, the doors are open to all who remember the deceased. So this must be a funeral. A shadow holding an umbrella approached the chapel. It was Will. A reception desk had been set up at the chapel's entrance. As the shadow approached, Canon, who had been sitting at this desk, stood up and welcomed him with a bow. This is the reception desk. We are collecting the names of all mourners. If you would sign in here. Sorry, but I'm not a mourner. I'm here to meet with someone. You came to a funeral to meet someone. A dubious expression rose to Canon's face. Will pulled an envelope from his pocket and showed him the sender's name. My apologies. Please enter. Thanks. Can I at least have one of those? Thank you very much. I am sure she would be pleased. Canon handed him one set of gold roses, which was being handed out to all the mourners. Will took it, silently bowed his head and entered the chapel. Inside the chapel, several people who appeared to be family of the deceased were gathered, and they all seemed to be recalling memories of the departed. Is this man the Kazuma Asogi of Umineko? That would not be a far gone way to describe him. And I guess, while I was gonna do this at the end, but we might as well just see here. So Willard, his name's Willard H. Wright, and Willard H. Wright is actually the name of an actual mystery author and art critic who wrote a bunch of mystery novels. Kind of like how Delanor is named after a mystery novelist herself. I think it's kind of by coincidence that his last name is Wright, and like Phoenix Wright, and how Badler is modeled after Phoenix Wright. But we'll read over this later, but I think that's just kind of interesting. Oh, Beatrice. Why? Oh. Father, please take care. Why don't you rest in the waiting room for a bit? I killed her. I did it. Absurd. How could that be, Rosa-sama? Father's really bawling. Yeah, Beatrice, huh? I'm sure he didn't cry this much when Mother passed away. Hey, now's not the time to say things like that. Some sobbed, unable to conceal their tears, and some spoke softly of old memories. They were all remembering the dead in their own way, it seemed. When Will approached the altar, several people turned around. Of course, none of them knew who Will was. Paying this no mind, Will walked in front of the casket on the altar, which seemed to be buried under golden roses. Inside the casket, there was a corpse. Or there was no corpse. Instead, as though it lay there in place of a body, was a single thick book with an extravagant binding. The space all around it was filled with countless golden roses. There were words printed on the book's cover. To my beloved Beatrice, October 5th, 1986. Miss Beatrice. If it was Mrs., then forgive me. I've never met you. However, allow me to express my condolences. He took the rose he had received in the reception area and placed it in the casket. He had absolutely no connection to the woman called Beatrice. However, since he had come to visit a funeral, he had to show his minimum amount of respect for the dead. As part of this, Will prayed for the passage of the dead into the next world. Pardon me, but who might you be? I am Ushimiya Kraus. I'm serving as the chief mourner. This is my child, Leon. Pleased to meet you. I'm Ushimiya Leon. Leon? Who the heck are you? It's written as Leon, but it's pronounced Leon. I guess it is a bit strange for a Japanese name. Will stared at Leon's face, wearing a confused expression. He hadn't seemed particularly interested in Kraus, but Leon had apparently drawn some sort of reaction from him. Hey Lork, welcome to the stream! Thanks so much for coming by. We're just starting episode 7. Yeah, we have some new characters. Rather than interest, it was more as though he felt something was out of place. Hey Niyeko, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for following me. Thanks for being a froggy friend. Good to see ya. Kraus-sama, Madam says it's about time. Ah, I see. Ladies and gentlemen, if we're too noisy in here, I may disturb the dead. I've been told the waiting room has been readied. Shall we move over there? When Kraus called out to everyone, they began to move towards the chapel waiting room. My apologies. Leon, could you entertain our guests for now? I'll guide the others to the waiting room. Yes, father. It looked like a natural conversation with no awkwardness for either father or child. Father and child, is it? Yes, but why do you ask? Ushimiya Kraus' child is supposed to be Jessica. Jessica's my little sister. Do you need me to call for her? No, that won't be necessary. Apparently some sort of game was already being played right off the bat. Scratching at his head with an irritated look on his face, Will glanced around. Pardon me, but what sort of relation did you have with the deceased? None at all. It's a real pain. Then why did you come to this funeral? Since Leon was a fairly mild person, Will's behavior was met with nothing more than a blank expression. A normal person would probably put on a dubious look long before this. Will scratched his head again and yelled angrily at someone other than Leon. I'm here. Isn't it about time you showed your face? The members of the Ushimiya family had already followed Kraus' instructions and moved to the waiting room. By now, no one could be seen in this cold, vast chapel, decorated with gold roses except for Will and Leon. So, you've come. Wizard hunting right, Inquisitor of Heresy? The girl's voice came suddenly from behind the pair. When Leon turned around in surprise, a girl had appeared out of nowhere and drifted down on top of the altar. She landed softly on the sacred funeral altar, as though this was perfectly normal, crushing the golden roses under her shoes. Of course, Leon didn't know this girl. Just why on earth were all these people, unrelated to the funeral, popping up one after another? I'm already retired. If you have a job you need to do, or you need doing, go ask the new right. No. You're the one I want to ask. I'm giving this case to you. Did you read the tale I sent you? I skimmed it. I don't know who you are, but please get down from there. That's a sacred altar. Snapping out of a daze, Leon told the girl to get down off the altar, but she ignored this completely. On top of that, Will kept on talking to the girl as though Leon wasn't even there. I hear this is Leon. Who is that exactly? You've already heard who... Ushimiya Leon. There's no case of a person with that name appearing in any of the previous games. Is this your piece? No. It's a true and proper piece of this game board. A character appearing in the story. You're the game master. That means it's your piece. I've just moved from Bito's cat box into a larger cat box. Leon is one of the pieces who has a possibility of appearing inside it. I see. In other words, it's your piece. It's a piece I've placed, would be the correct way to say it. So you're saying this piece isn't your subordinate like Erica? Erica? Who's that? Erica-san? Huh? Don't try to understand. You'll just get a headache. Leon didn't have a clue what they were talking about. However, though neither person was familiar, it seemed clear they both knew a lot about the Ushimiya family. I don't know what you two are talking about. Anyway, you, girl, please get down off the altar. I ask this as the successor to the Ushimiya family headship. Even Leon was finally forced to speak in a raised voice to that girl, who continued to chat while casually standing on the altar. However, the girl ignored this completely. On the other hand, Will did show a reaction. The successor is supposed to be Kraus. My father, Kraus, will be the acting head until I turn 20. Then I am to succeed the headship. First I've heard of this. Can you prove it? It seemed that even Leon was starting to get ticked off by now. That calm expression appeared to twitch slightly. This is the successor's silver ring of the one-winged eagle. Is that proof enough for you? Silver ring? The golden head's ring has appeared several times, but I've never heard anything about a silver ring for the successor. I don't remember Kraus or Jessica ever wearing one of those. I'm glad. For someone who's just skimmed it, it seems you've read it pretty well. When a witch hands you a story, you never know when something absurd will pop up. Especially when it's a great witch from the Senate. What? Who in the world are you two? Sorry, but I don't have a clue what you're talking about. If you've finished offering flowers for the departed, please make your exit. It seems you two aren't worthy of our family's hospitality. Leon finally ran out of patience. These were the strictest words that this gentle kid could unleash. However, Will and the girl seemed not to care at all. I didn't come here because I wanted to. We're wasting time, so let's move onwards. Right. Try and beat this game. As the game master, Kirostyle, I invite you to join in. I refuse. Why? I'm retired now. Reasoning and mysteries aren't my business anymore. How do you intend to spend the rest of your life? Is wizard hunting right going to give up witch hunting? There's still fox hunting and clam hunting to look forward to. I didn't come here to discuss the rest of my life with you. So you came here to refuse? Know that your powers of deduction are truly a sight to behold. Then do as you will. Go wherever you please. That is, assuming you can leave this place. So? What are the terms in payment? In truth, Will had resigned himself from the beginning. He knew that he was incapable of refusing an invitation from the great lady Kirostyle. Who killed Beatrice? That's my game. In payment, I'll forgive you for your insolence and let you leave this chapel. I hear that boredom-hating witches just love being spoken to rudely. That's only for hags, who've tired of life after 1,000 years. I am still plenty young, so I love thinking up horrible fates in which to trap rude men like you. So, who's my enemy? There is none. There's no one to stand in your way. I just want to sit back and watch you make your beautiful checkmate in this game. I've even found you an ally. That's what this Leon is for. Huh? After hearing that name spoken out of the blue, Leon frowned once more. Apparently they were moving things along without Leon's knowledge or understanding, which the latter seemed to find truly irritating. Leon is a member of the Ushimiya family, and should prove to be a useful ally, seeing as no one in the family knows you. I'm not sure what this is all about, but I can hardly be of assistance until I know what's going on here. There, see? With help like this, it'll be a piece of cake. Entertain me, and my master, wizard hunting right. Awa might be a polite theater goer, but I might throw popcorn at you if I get bored, okay? Will scratched his head with a displeased look on his face. He wasn't at all interested in getting involved, but by now he realized he couldn't disobey Berncastell's orders. Then he approached the casket and pointed at its rose-filled insides. You asked me to solve the case of Beatrice's murder, but Van Dyne's 20 rules, Rule 7. So just like how Delanor uses Knox's Decalogue, which is from Ronald Knox, who Delanor is named after, Will talks about these Van Dyne's 20 rules. Van Dyne, I think, Van Dyne's rules for mystery novels were written by the mystery novelist Willard H. Wright, which he is named after. They are similar to Knox's Decalogue, but a little bit different, and also, there's more of them. It is forbidden to have a crime without a corpse. That's a devil's proof. Maybe it just isn't inside the casket. Unless you could prove that no corpse exists, this is a mystery. Rule number 1. It's forbidden to have a crime without all clues presented. Don't worry, everything is gathered here. Though there was no change to Will's unsatisfied expression, he seemed to have understood the general pattern of this place. The simple fact that a mere inquisitor of heresy had been summoned by an uninhibited, fickle, cruel great witch of the Senate meant he'd been treated as no more than a mere underling. All along, he had possessed no way to refuse her. So, who killed the owner of this empty coffin? I'll answer that question. However, you'll let me do things my way. As you like. First off, I need to make you understand the current situation. Yes, that would be extremely helpful at the moment. Leon's expression seemed nonplussed, angry and confused all at the same time. Over here. It'll be faster to see for yourself. Wonderful. Please lead the way. Will signaled with his chin for Leon to follow him and spin around. After snorting once in an unsatisfied manner, Leon followed him, as though resigned to Will's little show. As she watched them leave the chapel, Berncastell sneered silently at them, a cold smile on her face. As the Miko of the Great Witch of Theater going, drama and spectating, featherine something Aurora, and as the Witch of Miracles, I, Berncastell, announce the start of this game. The tale's title is Requiem of the Golden Witch. Spin a tale fitting for Bito's funeral. Well now, let's just see how you drag out the guts. She watched until the pair had left the chapel. Berncastell's form evaporated into empty air just as she had arrived. All that remained was her unpleasant cackling. Outside, it was still raining. When Canon saw the guest and the successor approaching the reception desk, he bowed deeply. Good work. You could take a break now, so would you mind leaving? It's Canon. Yes, as you wish. Canon bowed deeply, then disappeared. Don't you remember the names of all your servants? Our family has many young servants coming in and out, and they're usually replaced quite frequently. Well now, what are you trying to explain to me? Who are you, and what business do you have with this family? Of course, there's no need to convince me. Feel free to head on home if you want. There is no going home. Not for me. Not for anyone. Could you please give that a rest? Stop speaking in confusing riddles like that all the time. Even I have limits to my patience. If you don't want me to see you off, then should I call Genji or Goda? Don't freak out. Look at this. Yes, I can see that. It's one of the memorial roses. Are you going to show me some kind of magic trick? Will took one of the flower offerings, then showed it to Leon, as though pointing out there were no mechanisms or tricks. Then he slowly lifted it upwards. Watch. Yes, I'm watching. Is a dove going to fly out of it? Or is it going to be flags and fireworks? Huh? Will threw the rose. Anyone would have expected it to fly in an arc and land in some puddle. It didn't, which was why Leon had been struck dumb. The rose thrown by Will certainly had flown in an arc. It should have sped on rapidly through the air. However, as soon as it passed out from the shade of the eaves and was about to reach the rain, it stopped right in midair, as though the air surrounding it had turned to syrup. That wasn't all. As it hung in midair, the rose's beautiful golden petals began to darken one after another, and it became a black husk like a burnt charcoal. And even after this happened, it remained suspended there in the air. What sort of trick is this? Don't move. Leon had moved closer to try and touch the remains of the rose, which still hung in the air. Will had roughly blocked the way with his arm. It was as though he was telling Leon that leaving this place meant certain death. This chapel has been cut off from the fragment. We're currently locked in a concentrated loop of time. What? What do you mean by that? Explaining's a pain, so I'll just give you the short version. Basically, unless we play along with a witch's game, no one can leave this place. What? The funeral's already over. I'm sure some people will want to return to the mansion or the guest house. We can't be locked up in here. If you got a bone to pick, that witch is the one you're looking for. Being stuck in a place like this isn't any more pleasant for me. That girl's your friend, right? Make her stop all this weirdness. She's probably sitting in a spectator seat with a bucket of popcorn about now. She won't come if we just call her. What on earth is going on here? That short sentence described all Leon's feelings at the moment. However, Leon had seen the rose Will threw wither in an instant in the rainy darkness. Leon tried doing the same thing with another rose, but the effect was exactly the same. No one would be able to use their own body to test this fearsome something that could make roses crumble instantly. There's only one way for us to be released from here. We have to play along with Berncastell's game. You mean the one about who killed Beatrice? That's what she's telling us to investigate. If you could fill me in, this will go more quickly. That fickle witch will be completely satisfied. You'll be able to get rid of the two of us, and I have a date with Diana when I get back. If I keep her waiting too long, she'll start tearing the sofa up again. Diana's his cat. And she's named after, I believe, the real Willard Wright's wife. Who killed Beatrice, you say? That's hardly something you should go barging into a funeral and ask the family about. Questioning the family is one of the basics of the mystery genre. Just give up and accept it. I do know that Beatrice is the mistress of Kinzo, the family head. You really are a strange person. How do you know so much about this family? Are you sure you have no connections with us? Will knew this much about the Ushime family because Berncastell had shown him all the fragments so far. Of course, he had no sort of connection with the Ushime family himself. The very plane of his existence was on a different level. However, Beatrice died a long, long time ago. According to Genji, she passed away before the mansion was completed. But the reason for her death is unclear. To be honest, this is the first I've heard about her being killed. Tell me about it. My name is Ushime Leon. Willard. Call me Will. For the first time Will introduced himself, their mutual introduction was finally complete, and Leon was finally able to talk with him on even footing. However, Leon took a deep breath and looked up at the sky, wearing a vague smile. Will-san. Call me Will. I'll call you Leon. Will? To be honest, even I don't know much about this person called Beatrice. I see. I guess it's called a game for a reason. If only Leon could have told him everything, revealing the truth without any effort from Will. Apparently things wouldn't be so easy after all. Everyone who enters the Ushime family knows the name and image of Beatrice. That's because of the massive portrait hanging in the entrance hall, isn't it? That portrait was first displayed in April of 1984. Seriously, how is it you know so much? Oh well. It's about time I stopped finding that odd. I'm sure you'll just start speaking in riddles again. Leon was the successor and lived in the head household. That made conversations with Kinzo an everyday occurrence. Because of this, Leon must have been used to chatting with people who were moody or hard to follow. With the understanding that getting stuck on the details would be nothing but a waste of time, the conversation naturally fell into a pattern as though Leon and this unknown man Will were longtime friends. Everyone knows Beatrice, yet no one knows her. Kinzo's the only one who's ever met her. The head seems to be particularly cranky today. I'll introduce you to him when the chance presents itself, so I ask you to develop an appropriately discreet attitude, Will-san. That was quick. I thought you'd resist a bit more than that. I'm used to speaking with the family head. I've learned to accept most unreasonable situations and just go with the flow. Kirostyle has set up a barrier, cutting the chapel off from the rest of the world. To destroy that, they would have to find out who killed Beatrice. For Leon, who had already experienced many of Kinzo's rantings, understanding this much more was more than enough. See, I like this episode because it feels a little bit more like a buddy cop situation. We actually have like two characters that we're following around. They banter with each other, which is kind of nice. Well, thank you for the stretch, Kieran. Are these two, you know? Well, I guess you're just gonna have to wait and find out. The Ushimiya family members were relaxing here and there around the waiting room. A light buffet-style meal had been set up, but it was a bit stale and not particularly appealing. Even so, those voracious kids seemed to find it intensely interesting. The cousins had set up a camp around it with Maria at the center. The adult siblings had also formed a group in a different corner. Perhaps because of Kinzo's absence, everyone seemed to be a little bit more relaxed. Leon, where did you go? And who is that? Mother, I was entertaining this guest of ours. Will, this is my mother, Natsuhi. No introductions needed. Just tell me what you have to say. Huh? Did you say something? No, he said nothing. This is Will-san. It seems he knew the deceased. With a smile, Leon casually smoothed over Will's words. He wants to know more about Beatrice. Do you know anything about her, mother? Leon, the departed is an individual to whom the head owed a great debt. Nothing more, nothing less. This funeral is a ceremony for the head to repay his benefactor for all he received while that person still lived. That is what I've been told, and there's nothing more to it than that. Thanks, Mother. Will, that's all my mother knows. Natsuhi was eager to deny this scandal about Beatrice being Kinzo's mistress. However, she also had enough sense to realize this scandal was probably true. Picking up that Natsuhi was in a bad mood and didn't want to talk about this anymore, Leon brought an end to the conversation before Will could say something rude again. Will, this chapel belongs to the family. So you're telling me to follow the family's rules? Speak in a manner appropriate for a guest of the family. Let me be the medium for all your conversations. I ask you follow those 2 rules. I'll work on that. The mess this Burnkista witch or whatever has dragged us into is a real pain. Because of that, I'm willing to help you. But we're equal partners in this job, and you'd best not forget that. And here I thought you were just some well-bred rich kid. Seems you could speak up after all. I must be prepared to shoulder the Ushimiya family's future after all. Got it. Let's solve this crime together, Watson. I'm glad I can help. I wouldn't want to keep your dear cat Diana waiting. Won't she need to be fed soon? I gave her extra food today, so she should be good for a while. I'm surprised you realized Diana was a cat. I figured it'd just be a bit too eccentric for her to be a human woman who scratches at sofas while you keep her waiting. Huh. So, who will you talk to first? Anyone. Everyone. Those ones over there are Krause's siblings, right? From right to left, there's Aunt Ava, Uncle Hideyoshi. Over there is Uncle Rudolph, Aunt Kyrie, And over there is Ushimi Rosa. When she was a girl, she once got lost in the forest and bumped into a woman calling herself Beatrice in a hidden mansion. I know I shouldn't be surprised anymore, but you really do know everything, don't you? So you know about that story too. I managed to overhear her saying that today. It looked as though it was bothering her, so I pretended not to hear. Real model student you are. Introduce me. I want to ask about it. You're asking this of the model student who pretended not to hear it because it just may be a painful topic. Even this outrageous arrogance is nothing compared to Kinzo. After muttering this several times mentally, Leon shrugged and nodded at will. Oh, it's our successor-sama. And who is this? Oh, Aunt Ava. This is Will-san. He came to offer flowers for the departed. Who cares about that? Tell me everything you know about... Ah! He says he wants to know what sort of relationship the Ushimi family has to do with the deceased. Leon spoke with a bright smile after pinching Will's butt. Leon, of all the things you could be doing. Will silently protested as though saying I saw that coming, but damn, that hurt. But Leon just played dumb and smiled at Ava like a model student. Well, even if you say relationship with the Ushimiya family, it probably makes more sense to say her relationship with father. No need to beat around the bush. She was father's mistress. If you call her that, Natsu-ne-san will yell at you again. He's indebted to her, right? Yep, that's right. Well, there you have it. I have no interest in anyone but Rosa. I do believe you said you met with Beatrice, Aunt Rosa. Yeah, Leon really wants that butt, doesn't he? This whole time, Rosa had been hanging her head. Leon's words made her shoulders quiver. She just suddenly came out with it today. It's a bit hard to believe. It's the truth. I killed Beatrice. Happy Pride Month. Perfect. Our work here is finished. Don't get ahead of yourself. Yeah, lion's gonna bite, right? Rosa broke down crying and laid her head on the table. Kiria and Hideyoshi tried to console her. Rokunjima is covered by a dense forest. We only know about one tiny portion of it. Just the mansion, the rose garden, and the little path that leads to the harbor. You can't believe this duo is just Kirin and Kiro. Yeah, I can see it. I like Will and Leon's dynamic. For years, it's been stories about how Dad built a hidden mansion somewhere in the vast forest no one knows about, and that he had a mistress living there. Rosa-san probably stumbled on the hidden mansion by chance. However, what does this have to do with Aunt Rosa killing Beatrice? If I hadn't taken her out with me, she never would have died. She was so innocent, like a chick. I took her out and she just followed along obediently. She stayed right behind me, trusting me completely, and because I made her take such a dangerous path. Did you make her walk that way because you were hoping she'd slip and fall from the cliff? I never meant to do that. I just thought she'd like to see the ocean. No, it just looked like the path would be hard to walk, and I thought it would be easier going if we went down the cliff first. That's not what it means to kill someone. It was an accident. An accident she would never have had if I hadn't brought her with me, right? It's my fault. And then I abandoned her when she was covered in blood and ran home. It isn't your fault. Beatrice had never seen the ocean before. You showed her that for the first time ever. She was probably so excited she happened to take a bad step. How could you know that? Beatrice might thank you for what you did. But she would never hate you. Really? Is that really true? She's the one who begged to see the world outside the fence, right? Oh, she's the one who begged to see the world outside the fence, right? Though it was only for a short while, you made that dream of hers come true. If I were Beatrice, I'd thank you for that short bit of time. If she knew you'd been suffering all this time for it, she'd probably feel sorry for you. Beatrice is grateful for what you did. You're the one who taught her that the sea is blue. Is that true? I guarantee it. Will made that statement openly and boldly. It wasn't clear how Rosa took those words. However, it had apparently been enough to remind Rosa to take a handkerchief out of her pocket and wipe her eyes with it. Thank you. Those are the words Beatrice is whispering to you even now. Thank you. Rosa wiped her eyes with the handkerchief one more time and hung her head. It no longer looked like a fit of sobbing, but more as though she was speaking with the Beatrice of that day within her heart. One last time. You really have no problem making claims you can never back up, don't you? Back up? Is that really necessary to comfort a woman? Seems I underestimated you. How many years did it torment Rosa? Now finally, she would probably be able to face that innocently smiling Beatrice who had seen the ocean for the first time in her life. She was the only one who could forgive Rosa. Now the two of them could finally speak together. I don't know who you are, but thank you. I wonder if she'll forgive me. You've worried about it for nearly 20 years. That's far too long. She'd tell you that you suffered more than enough already. That's right, Aunt Rosa. The sadder you are, the sadder Beatrice would be. You too. Thank you. I don't know if I'll be forgiven, but I'll keep on speaking to my heart to see whether she'll forgive me or not. Thanks, you two. Sorry for showing you such an embarrassing side of me. And I'm sorry to say this right after saying something so pretty, but I want you to talk to me. Tell me what happened back then. Will-san. Thanks, but it's fine. I'll talk. Hiding this and keeping quiet about it for so long might have been my greatest sin. Exactly when was it that you met Beatrice? Upon hearing this question, Rosa closed her eyes lightly, reaching back to a past she didn't want to remember. It was about 20 years ago. 20... Oh wait, it might have been 19 or 18 years ago. I'm sorry. I've tried to force myself to forget it for so long, I nearly forgotten that part completely. It should have been 1967. Ronov had guaranteed that with the red truth in the third game. That's right, it was probably about 1967. I can remember what happened as clearly as a picture. I'll never forget. If it's too tough for you, don't feel like you have to tell us. Yes, clear as a picture if you don't mind. Ugh! Damn it, that hurts, Leon! What does? At the time, I was in a state of shock, since my tutor told Mother about something that was supposed to be a secret. On that day, I became reckless and I kept on running deeper and deeper into the forest. This tale has also been told in a previous fragment. Back when Rosa was just a kid, she went deep into the forest, found a hidden mansion, and met with a mysterious woman who called herself Beatrice. But that forest is so thick, even pushing your way through is a bit hard, right? I even surprised myself to think I made it so far into such a dense forest. I was tormented by twigs and sharp leaves over and over again. However, that wasn't enough to bother me on that day. After all, I wanted to disappear into the forest and vanish forever. If by some chance there really was a witch's mansion in the depths of the forest, I hoped she might take me to some paradise, or else turn me into a frog and make me a resident of the forest. Frog Rosa? So you then reached the hidden mansion, Kuadorian, and met a woman who called herself Beatrice. Yes, I met her. Was that Beatrice the same as the one in the portrait? Yes, they were the same person. Beautiful blue eyes, golden hair, a black dress. It truly was the person in that portrait. When Father first had it hung, I realized that the 20 years I'd spent trying to forget must have seemed just as long to Father, if not longer, and I became even more fearful of my sin. stop there. Are we sure that this is the same Beatrice that Rosa-san met? Immediately, Kyrie spoke the question that Will had been thinking of. It would be too rash to assume that the Beatrice Kinzo met and the one Rosa met were the same person. The time and generation didn't match up. Beatrice is supposed to be a lady of leisure who lent Dad all that gold shortly after the war, right? By using Beatrice's gold as a foundation, Father revived the Ushibe family and got super rich. Then he bought Rokujima and moved over. Rosa-san meeting her must have been at least 10 years after that. A woman who could do as she pleased with 10 tons of gold could hardly be some little girl. And 10 more years passed before she met Rosa. Rosa, about how old did the Beatrice you met look? She looked older than I was at the time, but even so, it looked like she might just be able to be reaching adulthood. Yes, just the sort of age of Beatrice in the portrait. Did she look middle-aged or past her prime? If I had to call her an adult or a child, she was clearly closer to being a child. There's no way she was middle-aged. And isn't that strange? We have the Beatrice you met and the Beatrice who gave Father the gold, but their ages don't match. In other words, they're different people. Different people who look very similar and have the same name. It might have been her daughter. A kid would obviously end up looking like her mother. His mistress's daughter. It is possible. Perhaps Father had an illegitimate child with the Beatrice who gave him the gold. And then Rosa bumped into Beatrice II. That way the ages fit just fine. I see. In other words, there are two people who could be called Beatrice. Kinzo secretly raised his mistress's child in a hidden mansion. It made sense. Everyone nodded, agreeing. However, Will's expression was slightly unsatisfied. He scratched his head. So it would seem that this funeral exists for the two Beatrices he couldn't mourn because they were kept secret. Rosa, I know you probably don't want to remember, but tell me about that accident. After Beatrice fell, was she still breathing? No. Her eyes were wide open. She fell upside down, head first, and knocked her head against a sharp crag on the rocky beach. And she fell from such a height. Her skull had split and caved inwards. That beautiful golden hair was stained red with blood almost instantly. Was it the sort of wound that clearly showed she was dead? Yes. I saw the insides of her cracked head. It had caved in deep enough to fit your fist inside it. No one could be naive enough to see that and still hope she was alive. Will, do you really need to ask anything more? It's enough for the time of the accident. What did you do afterwards? I dashed away at full speed. I can't say I was thinking about calling for help. I wanted to escape from that place as fast as I could. Half crazed, sobbing out of breath, I kept on running about at random. Eventually I came across a familiar lion statue. Oh, the one in front of the chapel. No, the one behind it. Anyway, I made it back to the mansion. I couldn't tell anyone, and I didn't want to. I stayed quiet until nightfall. It was so horrible of me. If I had hurried and told someone, they might have brought her a first aid kit and she might have been saved. How's a first aid kit gonna help with a crushed cranium? You didn't kill her. Don't worry about that anymore. Then what did you do next? That night I turned over in my bed so many times, I couldn't sleep. Late that night I quietly called Genji-san on the phone and told him. What did he say? He told me to let him handle everything, and speak of this to no one. I spent the next several days terrified Father would call me and scold me brutally. But he didn't. Genji-san kept on doing his job quietly, just like normal. Father stayed locked up in his study, not knowing any of it. At the very least, none of us ever heard about it. Genji-san probably managed to clean everything up nicely. After all, they couldn't let knowledge of that child go public. Even if she was an illegitimate child, she was still his daughter by blood. It must have been tough for Father not being able to hold a real funeral for her. I suppose that's why we're having this funeral. And then... That's all I know. That's all I know too. I'm not hiding anything else. I've told you everything. I swear it. Will scratched his head, letting his gaze wander. It had taken Rosa a lot of determination to make this confession, but it was nothing particularly special for Will. It had apparently been little more than a review of information he already knew. Thanks, Aunt Rosa. Is that enough for you, Will? Are you satisfied? That's enough. It was a nice review. To Will, Rosa's memories gave only information that was already known. This was the first time he heard all that about her running back to the mansion after Beatrice fell to her death, but none of it particularly surprising. Apparently Rosa didn't know any more than this. If he wanted to learn more than what was in the fragments Bernkastel gave him, he would need to find new testimony. Leon, tell Kinzo I want to talk to him. Looks like we won't be getting anywhere without asking the man himself. Where are you going? Off to cool my head and organize my thoughts. Don't follow. Well then, pardon me. Please take your time. After giving an elegant bow, Leon made a face, tongue sticking out. Unless Will had eyes on the back of his head, he could have seen that last bit. Will returned to the chapel by himself. The cold air and the monotonous sound of the rain were comforting. So, how's the game going? He had come here for a little peace and quiet. As soon as he let out a sigh of relief, that voice rang out. That's my line. It was as though she had been sitting there all along. Bernkastel appeared atop the altar once more. Beatrice's altar must have been extremely comfortable. Badler annoyed me over and over again with his incompetence. You're quite competent compared to him, so it's much more relaxing to watch you work. Unlike Ushibia Badler's games, I have nothing standing in my way. It's easy. That sort of game has already ended. Tales can be enjoyed twice. First you love them, then you tear out their guts. So I'm a butcher now. So, you think you figured out who killed Beatrice? Rosa's confession is something I already know from a previous fragment. There's no brand new information. We're still at square one. Unless Ushibia Kinzo tells us what really happened, we won't get any further than this. Don't tell me that arguing with Kinzo and persuading him to spill the beans is supposed to be part of this game. That'd be fatally boring. Kinzo refuses to speak of the truth, and is himself the king protected by his castle. But it wouldn't be any fun to have that stand in the way of your game. I won't torture. It's not my style. I know. As the game master, I will grant you power. So you can get the truth from Kinzo, of course. Still wearing shoes, Bernkastel stepped into the casket, picked up one of the flowers that had been set as offerings, and blew hard as though scattering fluff from a dandelion. Then a single petal broke off and drifted down towards Will. No longer gold, but the shine of a transparent crystal. The detective's authority. What, that pathetic ability? No. This is an invitation to the grandstands. Theater-going authority. That's supposed to be forbidden without authorization from the Senate. I'm the one giving it out on my game board. Who's going to stop me? Though the crystal flower petal danced in the wind, it wouldn't fly away until Will accepted it. He remembered how useless it was to argue with witches and snatched it up. Hey Ozelia, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for stopping by. When he did, the petal flashed brightly for an instant, melted into Will's palm and disappeared. Entertain me if you can, and try and enjoy yourself. You must also be interested in seeing what the guts of Beatrice's game board look like, right? Not really. After Will's rude answer, Bernkastel vanished into thin air, leaving behind an obnoxious laugh. Huh. After clicking his tongue, Will turned around unhappily. When he did, it felt as though his gaze had crossed that of a shadow standing right in front of him, near the door that led outside. Who is it? Pardon me. I heard a voice, so I wondered who it was. Shannon. So you're running the reception desk this time? Yes. I've been taking it turns with Canon-kun to run the reception desk. And Canon. A short while ago he was ordered by, Leon-sama to take a break, so he's resting now. So you don't know Leon either? Huh? No, that's not. Ushimiya Leon is the successor, the one who wears the silver ring. Why are you stumbling over that name when you worked here for 10 years? That's... Don't worry. I don't recognize Leon either. Kraus is supposed to be the successor. Jessica is supposed to be his only child. There hasn't been a single fragment with anyone named Leon in the Ushimiya family. When she realized that Will didn't recognize Leon either, Shannon relaxed. Apparently she was a bit relieved to find she wasn't going crazy by herself. However, her expression quickly grew uncertain once more. Where is this place? I think it's the Ushimiya family chapel. However, something feels different about it. Also, I never knew that someone named Leon-sama existed. And yet Madam, Kraus-sama, the master, Milady, and all the relatives all talk as though it's perfectly natural. I just don't understand what's happening. Leon is a piece placed by Bird Castell. She also said that in order to place that piece, she switched over to a larger cat box. On top of that, it seems this world isn't a proper world, but one made out of several different fragments sewn together. It's as though there's a special stage set up specifically for this game. I'm sure she's nodding at my thoughts right now, laughing and chopping down popcorn. How long have you worked here in this world? 10 years. I see. So it really is a special stage. After all, right when I entered the chapel, I spotted Kinzo. Since Shannon's been working here for 10 years, this world takes place in 1986, the stage of Bito's game. In that case, Kinzo shouldn't exist. However, he definitely was here a few minutes ago. Birkestel promised that all the information needed for reasoning was gathered here. She must have really packed it together to fit everything in. I see, so it really is a special stage. You've served the Ushimiya family for many years, so just how much do you know about Beatrice? I know the master loved her deeply, but other than that... Is that all? And, they say that she's the master of Rokujima's knight. That's right. The name of the ghost rumored to wander the mansion right after night is also Beatrice. That brings the number of Beatrices to 3. The first is the witch from more than 30 years ago, who is said to have given Kinzo the gold. The second is the Beatrice from 20 years ago who met Rosa. The third is the Beatrice of the ghost stories, who's rumored to be the master of the knights on Rokujima. The Bia thrice. Furuto Erika's reasoning was probably correct. It started out as a legend of evil spirits of Rokujima. Later on, elements such as Kinzo's occult hobbies, the name and portrait of the mysterious woman, Beatrice, and the epitaph got mixed in, and it was all integrated into the legend of the Golden Witch. Then the darkness of the night gained the personality of a witch. That's the third Beatrice. This became the veil for the serial murders. Apparently she didn't understand a word of Will's sudden monologue. Shannon tried to follow along, but she seemed to be having difficulty. Don't waste your time trying to understand. You'll just get a headache. My apologies. Canon doesn't know Leon either, right? Yes. Canon-kun was the same as me. Shannon and Canon, is it? Call Canon over here. I want to talk to the pair of you about something. When Will said these words, Shannon's face went blank and her eyes went wide. My apologies. We aren't allowed to leave the reception desk unmanned, so I can't go leave to get him. Then find a replacement and have them take over the reception desk until you get back. You, me, and Canon. We, the 3 people who don't know Leon, need to talk. We've been told that one person is enough to run the reception desk. But no one told you there was anything wrong with 2 people manning it, right? We're low on helpers today, so we were told that having 2 people at the reception desk would be unnecessary. Who gave you that order? Kinzo, Kraus, or was it Leon? I will check with them. It was the one who orders me. I cannot disobey orders. Who is this person? I'll negotiate with them. You cannot negotiate. It is the one who orders us. Call Cannon over here. I hate that theater going just as much as I hate torture. Slowly, Will pulled out his right hand out of his pocket. When he slowly opened his fist, a small bright glow emanated from it. The flower petal given to him by Bird Castell had become a glowing, sparkling mark on his hand. Yeah, Shannon be like, there's no murder on Rokujima. We're all happy here all the time. He held that out towards Shannon, slowly approached her. Call Cannon. I want to check something with you two. I can not call him. Do you still want me to? If you don't call him, I'm going to use my authority. If you insist, I can't call him, especially for you, but... There was some kind of incomprehensible tension between the two. Will stood there, his left hand still in his pocket, his right palm glowing stretched out towards her. Shannon just stood there, hands still folded politely in front of her, her posture beautiful. And yet it felt oddly as though windswept drops of rain were sparkling and crackling in midair. I will go call Cannon-kun. Are you absolutely certain? Will's expression had remained unchanged the whole time. Shannon's face was still kind and gentle, and yet the tension was as icy as a frozen lake. Beginners at chess would sometimes move their king in a check without noticing it. One might mercilessly capture the king in this situation, but high-level players are supposed to calmly tell their opponents about their mistake. If you take one more step, you'll get captured. This was similar to that. I see. So after all... I get it. That's enough. You guys could take it in turns to run the reception desk. Hey Hadrilia, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for coming by. Welcome, welcome. Slowly, Will lowered his hand. Thank you for understanding. The glow slowly vanished from Will's palm. That completely incomprehensible tension melted away like a sugar cube in water. However, nothing had changed since the beginning. Will's expression and Shannon's expression were the same as they always had been. Yeah, Will be like, maybe I won't rip asunder the fabric of reality today. Oh, are you leaving? Footsteps approached them. It was Leon. Just having a casual conversation. I want to ask her something. Yeah, stream's going really well. Thank you for stopping by. I really enjoy episode 7. What could that be? Did you find what you were looking for? Yeah. I'm honored to have been of service. That's a shame. If you're looking for an umbrella, I could have gotten you one right away. Did you convince Kinzo? I told him that a rare guest wanted to greet him. He says he'll meet with you. Did you tell him I want to ask about Beatrice? Isn't that your job? With a slightly mischievous look, Leon turned away. Will scratched his head and shrugged, looking annoyed. Ah, well, guess I'll get a chance to try this out at least. Will opened his right hand and showed it to Leon. It was just a hand without anything remotely remarkable about it. Leon's head tilted to the side in bafflement at the strange gesture. Good work. Wait, your name was... It's Shannon. That's right, Shannon. Please take over the reception desk. And make sure you keep warm. Thank you very much, Leon-sama. Shannon bowed deeply in response to Leon's kind words. There was not even a trace of tension in her manner. Let's go, Will. You don't want to miss this chance. The head's mood changes quicker than the autumn sky. Good luck. Here we go. Well, that was kind of weird. I wonder what's going on there. I brought Willard-san. Kinzo and Genji could be seen in the VIP room. Kinzo was sitting back in a chair, his eyes closed as though in a troubled sleep. Master, the guest has come to see you. Kinzo slowly opened his eyes. Those eyes were red from crying. They regained their focus and slowly fell on Will. I am Ushimiya Kinzo. Will. I'm Willard. Allow me to express my condolences. So you came to attend Beatrice's funeral. Just who are you? I'm no one. I have no connections with anyone. Don't think too deeply about it. You'll just get a headache. Ow! I ask you choose your words a little more carefully. Huh, what a strange guest. So, what business do you have with me? I want to ask about Beatrice. What? Kinzo's gaze grew sharp. Leon felt a bit lightheaded and wondered why this guy had to be so direct. Why do you ask? You're no one, aren't you? Why do you want to know about Beatrice? What is your purpose? Because I'm no one. I can listen to your tale impartially and record it. You'll probably leave this world before too long. If you die without telling anyone anything about Beatrice, your children will adore Beatrice with whatever tale they please, writing that into their memories. You entertain me, boy. Do you plan on writing my will for me? I mean, his name's Will. That's none of your business. Beatrice is mine alone. No matter what other people say, no one can defile our tale. What they say is of no consequence. No matter how crass the others misconstrue it, it may neither painful nor vexing to me. Willard-sama, the master is not fond of wills. And that includes you, because your name's Will. He is not the sort of man who would abandon a task, so it might be performed after his life ends. Probably true. I thought it sounded a bit unlike you. The ability to struggle on as long as we have life is what makes us human. You think I would give up so soon and leave behind a will? How absolutely, or laughably absurd. Yes, that does sound a bit more like you. It's not your style to ask someone to write about the past just because you think your death is drawing near. We know how deeply you love Beatrice-sama. You are the model most worthy of respect that any of us know, an example for us to follow in every aspect of our lives. Please guide our wandering souls and tell us just how much you loved her, grandfather. How are you able to live through everything you faced because of her love? I only ask for you to guide us by showing us that love's strength. You're pretty good at this. It's your fault for being so tactless. Boy, what do you know of Beatrice? A truly ignorant person wouldn't even be interested in learning more. The mere fact you know Beatrice's name shows you are neither ignorant nor unconnected. Good point. The Beatrice I know of is the woman you loved, the one you met before the mansion on Rokujima was even built. However, she probably departed from this world, leaving behind a daughter, and that's the girl who was raised in Kuwadorian. Oh-ho! Willard-sama, there is no building known as Kudodorian on Rokujima. That name, Kuodorian. You mentioned it when we were talking about Rosa too. What in the world does it mean? You should have an idea by now. It's the name of the hidden mansion, deep in the forest, where his mistress's daughter lived. Interesting. So you actually know the name of Kuodorian. Or, all this kid. Interesting. So you actually know the name of Kuodorian. Continue. You have sparked my interest. Kizo shrugged and grinned. The one living at Kuodorian was probably Beatrice's daughter. However, it seems that you, at least, didn't think of her that way. Oh, then how did I think of her? When Ushime Rosa went to Kuodorian, Beatrice told her a little about herself. In that conversation, she referred to you as Kinzo. It was the same as when she spoke to you directly. Though she said she thought of you as a father, she didn't call you father. She either chose not to call you that, or she wasn't allowed to call you that. That could only mean one thing. And what might that be? Reincarnation. You didn't think of your daughter as a child Beatrice left behind. You believed that the dead Beatrice had revived into a new body. Geji, once in the past you spoke in front of Natsui and several other family members, stating there was never a child between Kinzo and Beatrice. I have no memory of saying this. Of course, this game's Genji probably wouldn't remember that. However, near the end of the first game, when the survivors all gathered in Kinzo's study, Genji was asked whether Kinzo and Beatrice ever had a child together, and he denied it, saying, I have not have heard of anything like that. That may have been a lie, but in a way it was a model answer for one of Kinzo's confidants. After all, in Kinzo's eyes, she wasn't a daughter, but Beatrice reborn. Well, I don't know what you're talking about, but I will not let you slander the family head. This isn't slander, it's reasoning. However, understand the heart. In your eyes, Beatrice was the woman you loved most. She remained that way even after death, for all eternity, and without fading in the slightest. I doubt you thought of her as Beatrice reborn, at the moment of her birth. However, it wouldn't be strange if you slowly began to wonder whether that child, whose blue eyes and beautiful blonde hair reminded you of a younger Beatrice, might actually be Beatrice reborn. Master, shall I? Shall I drag this rude child out? Genji asked Kinzo. For a while, Kinzo hung his head in silence, as though remembering something from his own past. Your daughter grew to be beautiful and nearly identical to her mother. You must have been ecstatic. However, I doubt you'd be completely satisfied by that alone. After all, though she was Beatrice reborn to you, she didn't think of herself that way. How could you know that? Whenever she was called Beatrice, she got this feeling she couldn't shake away. A feeling like something was out of place. People never feel anything out of place about the name they're given at the time of their birth. However, she did have that feeling. That must mean she was aware the name Beatrice wasn't hers. In Kuodorian, she asked both Kinzo and Rose about who she was. Who am I? Everyone calls me Beatrice, and that does indeed seem to be the name of a great witch, as you say. That isn't me. I cannot use any magic. I simply have that soul of a witch sealed inside my body. Her memory would have returned eventually. Her memory would have returned eventually. She must truly have been Beatrice reborn. Her memory was coming back bit by bit. My magical ceremonies were helping her regain her memories one little bit at a time. Het-sama. There's no need to be surprised. If you line up the information in all the games so far, this is the obvious answer you get. The high-level Beatrice talked about this. By metaphor, she said Kinzo refused to let the witch's soul escape even after death, and instead caught it and locked it up in a body of flesh. She also said that her power memory had been sealed. If you match that interpretation of hers to this theory, it all makes sense. Lilith-sama. Thanks to powerful magical ceremonies, the Master gained a reborn child of the dead Beatrice-sama. That cannot be denied. I won't deny the stork, and I don't intend to doubt the depths of Kinzo's love for this woman called Beatrice. How a man shows his affection for a child who's the only living reminder of his mother or her mother is no one's business. If she grew to look more and more like Beatrice, and Kinzo's love gave rise to a new special emotion, I find that a very human reaction. You think you could understand my love? I'm not qualified to understand it. However, I'm also not qualified to deny it. Oh, Beatrice, please, forgive me. Kizo sobbed quietly for a while, wiping away his tears. Because of love, he believed she was Beatrice reborn, and raised her that way. However, somewhere in his heart, he might have felt pangs of conscience, telling him he might be forcing his emotions on someone who wasn't really Beatrice. Then the Beatrice of Kuodorian had an unexpected guest, Rosa. That woman simply couldn't believe she was the Beatrice Kizo desired. She couldn't stand the fact she didn't understand who she was, and she wanted to escape to the outside world. Yeah, sorry, if you're new here, the story could be quite hard to understand, because we're on episode 7 of 8, and apparently we're like 120 hours in, so it's quite complicated, but I think if you kind of understand the gist of it, that might be enough for now. Then she fell from the cliff and died. Genji handled that death, which couldn't become public knowledge, very quietly. Funerals aren't for the dead. They exist so those who are alive can sever their ties with the dead. Oh, sorry, this is Will again. Funerals are for the dead. They exist so that those who are alive can sever their ties with the dead. You can never do that. That's why it festered within you. Beatrice. Oh. Grandfather. You lost your mistress's daughter. No, you lost Beatrice twice. Unable to let that sorrow show on the outside, you kept locked up in your heart, and eventually festered and turned to madness. That's what spurred on your abnormally strong interest in the occult in your later years. Oh, Beatrice. Beatrice. Why did you leave me twice? Your smile, that beautiful hair, those eyes. Why did you die in my arms not once but twice? Is that how much you... Oh. But now Kizo wasn't even trying to suppress his sobs. He sometimes scratched his head in anguish, sometimes faced the heavens like an opera singer. Kizo yelled over and over again, repeating Beatrice's name. At that moment, there was a quiet sound of a door closing. When they turned around, she was already there. Kumasawa had appeared. If they already know that much, perhaps we could tell them the rest. Though if they know that much, I don't believe there's anything more to tell. No, we should tell them. As a woman, I've always thought the heart of Kuodorian's Beatrice is a story that should be told. And now someone has appeared who is worthy to hear it. I believe that now is the time to tell all without holding back. Kumasawa-san, do you know something about Beatrice? Of course she does. In the 4th game, we have testimony from the ferryboat captain saying that Kumasawa went in and out of Kuodorian. I'd be willing to bet that Kumasawa had different work shifts at the mansion in Kuodorian. There was a young girl to be taken care of. Kumasawa, with her long experience in taking care of children, must have been of immense value. That is correct. You might even call me her wet nurse. No way. I can't believe it. So everything Wilson is saying is the truth. Yes, it is a fact. A secret mansion was constructed on the opposite side of the island for Beatrice-sama. Kuodorian's existence is truth. I don't know when Kizo married his official wife, but at that time he already had an enormous amount of wealth and had bought Rokujima whole. He then built 2 mansions and set up 2 separate lives. Kinzo's children had also been aware of Kinzo's clandestine eccentricities at the time. It probably hadn't been easy to maintain 2 separate lives. Moreover, Kinzo's wife had been suspicious and sniffed around all the time. The master stayed in Kuadorian as much as time allowed. He would sometimes pretend to go on a business trip and stay there for several days, treasuring the time he spent with Beatrice-sama. It was not a father-daughter relationship. You could sometimes catch a glimpse of his great love for the dead Beatrice-sama, and it was a heartwarming thing. The way you say it makes it sound like he sometimes treated her as a substitute for the dead Beatrice. Oh, if it sounded that way, my apologies. Beatrice-sama probably accepted her father's love. However, I will not deny that she was sometimes forced to bear love she didn't understand. Kumasawa's tone made it sound as though she was scolding Kinzo. As a mother who had raised many kids, Kumasawa had probably spotted that Kinzo's love was sometimes misplaced. However, the more she grew to look like her mother, the more distorted and twisted Kinzo's heart became. Because of his deep love, it grew very, very twisted. You were right to scold me, my friend. I understand. My love is eternal and undying. However, I must acknowledge that I poured that affection onto the wrong person. Grandfather. Wait, you don't mean... Leon-sama. All humans in this world are tied to each other. Even if they do not notice, there is always some sort of tie. Those ties wrap themselves around people and bring them together. No way. Grandfather! Just as Kinzo had done, Leon also wiped away tears and stared down at the floor. Apparently the truth had been too much of a shock for the young successor to handle. Master, the time to speak has arrived, has it not? I see. So that time has come, my friend. Unless you tell us, none of the truth will become clear. Master, I believe they may have the qualifications and the right to know. I know. Perhaps on this day of my fickle funeral, Beatrice in heaven has given me a chance to atone. Forgive me for not telling you before this now. After taking a deep breath, Kinzo finally lowered the hands that had been covering his face, and looked at Will and Leon with those red eyes. Grandfather. You listen too, Leon. Guest. Willard, was it? Yeah. I thank you for giving me a chance to speak of the truth while I am still able. You must surely be a messenger from heaven sent by Beatrice. You have my gratitude. Beatrice isn't the one you have to thank. It was just a witch. Well, I guess they're both witches. Huh, I do not care who it was. I've been given a chance. That is enough. Thank you, Willard. Kinzo slowly stood up and held out his right hand. He was offering to shake hands. It must have been Kinzo's way of expressing his gratitude. Will responded. Then the 2 hands gripped each other tightly in silence. When they did, a bright light poured out from the gap between the 2 hands. Ugh. Will felt as though something the size of a grain had burned itself into his palm. It was the power that Kirostyle had given him. The light grew brighter and brighter. However, it seemed the kids or the others couldn't see it. Now, I will speak. I met Beatrice Castiglione, just before the end of the war. She came from across the sea. And we're finally getting to the meat of it. We're finally getting some backstory. Are you Kinzo? It's how grandfather looked in the past. I've seen photos. Just what on earth? It's the theater-going power Bird Castell gave me. Don't try to understand. I'll just get a headache. You're getting the hang of this. Yeah, is Kinzo actually Akihiko? At one time, Genji told Battler that he looked like Kinzo in his youth. Sure enough, though the young Kinzo wasn't exactly the same as Battler, they looked very similar. Allow me to introduce myself again. I am Ushimiya Kinzo. Grandfather? Even the voice seemed to resemble Battler's somehow. Clearly, Battler had inherited Kinzo's blood more thickly than any other. I had no desire to succeed the Ushimiya family headship. My being chosen as the head was nothing more than a prank of fate. In the Great Kanto earthquake, those in charge passed away, and you were selected for the branch families. That's correct. After all, Grandfather was wise despite his youth, and he already possessed a dignity fitting for the headship. Ridiculous. Those greedy elders kept looking out for their own personal interests. They couldn't decide on new head at all. It was as foolish as arguing about who the new captain should be on a sinking ship. So since you had no connections with anyone in the main family, you were selected right out of the blue. It's all because of my toes. If only I had one less toe on each foot, my life had turned out quite differently. In the Ushimiya family, polydactyly was seen as a mark of good fortune. After all, many of the great ones of their family history had possessed it. It was all very pathetic. The elders didn't care whom they dragged in as long as it wouldn't benefit any one of them particularly. So they just happened to hear someone in one of the branch family had 6 toes, and decided they would do well enough. Yeah, this lore sounds really kooky when we put it out like this. Precisely. The elders didn't care what sort of novice became the next head, as long as they could make him their puppet. In fact, the more this person was ignorant of leadership, the better it would be for them. Grandfather. Leon, it is quite different in your case. You will be the one who inherits everything I have. That is the fate you were granted on the day of your birth. That is why I gave you that silver ring and raised you so strictly. You are quite different from me. Yeah, it's the toes! The toes gave him all the power! You are already a splendid successor, of whom no one could be ashamed. Yes, sir. A puppet for the head. I doubt that could have been easy. Are we gonna see the Grippers or what? Would you guys want to see that? 10 tons of gold? No, I want to see the 10 tons of toes. Oh, gosh. Huh. As he pondered about where to begin, Kinzo laughed bitterly. It was probably bring back painful memories no matter where he started from. It lasted for so long, that span of grey days. That dizzying stretch of time I spent like moss growing on a rock. I became the rope in a tug-of-war between the elders, who thought of nothing but their own profit, and I probably could have snapped at any moment. However, people are far more resilient than one would think. Though I spent so many days as though I had been killed, I was not killed. So I was forced to search for death on my own. Before I realized it, I reached an age at which the young would laugh at me if I tried to call myself young. That dizzying long stretch of grey was left completely empty. It lasted for a full 20 years. In 20 years, a person can be born, find a purpose, and even become their own man with their own place in the world. In short, if one truly becomes a human only when they have become a working adult, then I spent a period of time long enough to create a human, doing nothing but playing the part of those greedy elders' puppet. Ironically though, that time aged my body, it did not age my mind. My mind alone was still as young as it had been during those rich, happy days before I was summoned to Odawara. Yet my body alone grew older and older. Eventually, the vast gap between the two reached almost incomprehensible levels. So I could hardly believe the worn-out man in the mirror was really me. No, it really wasn't me. The head of the Ushimiya family was just a name. It had no power. It didn't require I had any independence. There was no need for me to get involved with anything. It was just a doll sitting there on the doll rack gathering dust. I remember nothing but lazily flipping through Western books I liked, locking myself up inside my own world, doing nothing but playing with roses and drinking terrible drinks. It lasted a full 20 years. Before I knew it, I suddenly had a wife I did not know. It wasn't any wife I had chosen. It was the daughter of some noble family the elders had chosen and forced on me for their own reasons. But that did not matter to me. I did not love my life, but neither did I dislike her. I just didn't care. I fathered a few children, but that wasn't out of love for my wife. They were just born before I knew it. That's all there was to it. None of it mattered. No, that's not quite right. Everything was decided by someone other than me, and I simply obeyed. That was the job of the Ushimiya family head. Yes, on some level I did feel as though I was being slowly and quietly killed. I can't believe it. To think that you, the one who's been praised for being such a bold and wise ruler, lived life like that for so long. Leon, there's nothing so long in fate as a life you do not live for yourself. Yet it slides on by the blink of an eye. Do not forget this. A life you live for yourself. Living means having your own will. You probably were dead during that time. Precisely. I want to live. No, I want to die. How can a puppet die? By cutting the strings. Correct. That would be death, and it would also be life. Since it would mean being free. Before I realized that trouble was brewing in the world. World War II. The Pacific War. Japan had extended their war fronts too far to the east and west, and the tide of war was changing. Thanks to the influence of the elders, I was able to avoid conscription. Of course, this was not out of compassion for me. It was because I was their precious puppet. So the war never really felt that close to me. However, when I personally decided to abandon their protection, it was very easy. At that time, the Ushimiya family had almost completely collapsed. And since the elders had apparently gathered enough of the scraps to last themselves the rest of their lives, they seemed to care little for what I did, now that they no longer had a use for me. So I realized I had finally found my time to die. One by one, I cut the threads I was hanging from, and began to search for a place to end my life. So you search for life, or you search for death on the battlefield. I thought that if I was going to die anyway, I should try to be of some use to my country. No, that's a lie. I probably just lacked the willpower to end my own life. War was such a suitable excuse for death. I heard that grandfather had knowledge necessary for public works projects and construction, so he was tasked with setting up facilities for the Navy construction team. Huh, what a foolish mistake that was. If only I just said that I had no useful skills, I could have been sent to the dangerous front lines right away. So you didn't need to go to the front lines. Some of the others were overjoyed at their luck. It was the opposite for me. I only wanted to get drunk on the liqueur known as dying for the sake of one's country. The US planes did nothing but cut across the skies of that forgotten island. They didn't even have a bullet to spare for me, much less a bomb. Is this the time you met Beatrice, grandfather? Correct. She came to me from the sea. Where did you meet her? You mentioned an island. Yes. This island. That's where she arrived. So you met her here on Rokujima. What's going on? I heard Rokujima was uninhabited until you bought it, grandfather. You're sorry, but did this man's shirt really have to have the tight grip chest line? You should see the original artwork for Umineko. Actually, I still have the picture up. The original art drawn by the original author. There we go. I mean, you can't really see it from Badler's picture here, but the way that Ryukishi draws, like, chests and stuff, especially if you look at Rudolph or Hideyoshi, he, like, makes them skin tight because he doesn't know how to draw shirts. So I guess they kind of carried some of that over here. It looks really funny, though. Like, Rudolph and Kraus and Hideyoshi, their suits look like they're painted on their skin. It's really a little bit unnerving. Oh, you looked up Will's original art too? Will looked better because he didn't have a suit. I think he had trouble drawing suits. Maybe they were painted on, maybe. Kraus seems like the type, oh my goodness. Like, it doesn't even look like pecs. When Ryukishi draws them, it looks just like man boobs. Like, no offense to his art, though. I never knew there was a Japanese military base here. Yes, you could hardly call it a military base. It was just a cave. I was one of the guards of that cave. (1944). Due to the honorable defeats at Saipan and Guam, Japan's absolute national defense zone strategy was in shambles. Where had the gallantry shown at Pearl Harbor gone? The old attackers were now the ones on the defensive. At the time, it was said the last trump card for the Japanese military was a type of manned torpedo known as the Kaiten. It was said these ultimate weapons, packed with 1.55 tons of explosives, were capable of sinking a high warship with a single blast. To strengthen the homeland defense, the Navy drafted a plan to build a string of hidden bases from Hachijo Island to Yokosuka, all to house submarines loaded with Kaiten torpedoes. I knew that there was a Kaiten base constructed on Hachijo Island, but was there actually one at Rokujima too? What fool decided to be a good idea to plant a base on this desolate island? To better preserve its secrecy? Huh, ridiculous. I could never understand what the higher-ups were thinking, and I didn't particularly want to. The Kaiten, which you could finish off a large warship with a single strike, truly was an ultimate weapon. It was hoped the presence of submarines capable of loading these weapons in the water just off Japan would allow for a powerful sea ambush as a final line of defense. So to aid in the establishment of a base with absolute secrecy, the uninhabited island Rokujima was raised as a possible candidate. An investigation of the island resulted in the discovery of a large cave in the cliffs, and this was apparently deemed to be a suitable location for a submarine base. So you were tasked with aiding in the establishment of that base. Establishment? Certainly if you call digging out a cave establishment. Not only that, the base was abandoned long before completion. But why? Because at the time, Japan no longer had any submarines large enough to transport a Kaiten torpedo. How truly laughable. What's the point in having a submarine base if there aren't any submarines left? If there's one thing that never changes, it's politicians and their meaningless projects. The base on Hachijo Island was outfitted with Kaiten torpedoes and became a base for direct attacks. But Rokujima was never supplied with any. Furthermore, the construction was eventually suspended, and a minimum number of men were stationed on the island, waiting for orders from above that never came. Could the fact it was a hidden base actually have sealed our fate? The higher-ups had already completely forgotten about this useless and pointless cavern. We were nothing more than guards for a mere cave. We spent our days farming, fishing, and playing with the dirt, all the while gazing up at the American formations flying past. Some of our group was relieved at the prospects of the war ending before anyone remembered we were here, and before any of us had to face a real battle. Of course, it was the opposite for me. I hoped and hoped for the American troops to advance and kill me as soon as possible. Those days were empty and blank. Let us go back to the turning point in my life and my fate, and the time Ushime Kinzo finally became truly alive. Yes, this is Kinzo's narration now. Step it up! What are you doing slacking off on the fighting so close? Stars seemed to spin inside my head. I could just lie down on the floor without only making him more angry. I've got no intention of being obedient. Still, it'd be stupid to get myself punched for no reason, so I got up and stood at attention. The fighting's close, isn't it? You really think the American troops are likely to show up on this forgotten island? Then let them come right now. That's what I've been waiting for all this time. What's that cowardly look you're wearing? Is this how afraid you are of death? Are you so scared of those Americans? You won't be killing any of them with an attitude like that. I got hit again. Would you please quit your whining already? Filthy cowards. They let themselves be controlled by this inexplicable anger because it's the only way to distract themselves from their own fear. Heart and spirit aren't of any use when the battle becomes hopeless. When trapped by an insurmountable hopelessness, Humans tend to rely on several other emotions to escape their fear. For these young and experienced soldiers, anger was a very convenient emotion to fall back upon. Anger is the wine they used to paralyze their fear. It made them chant, "Damn the British, damn the Americans," as they swung their bamboo spears around and called it drilling. The more wine you drink, the more you need to drink to get drunk. Their useless anger continued to pile up, day after day, without pause. I did not fear death, so I had no need of the wine called anger. This made their cowardice all the more apparent to me. What's that look on your face? Ushimiya, you've lost your nerve down to your very soul. You're a fish, that's what you are. You've got the eyes of a dead fish. However, it went both ways. Just as I was able to spot their cowardice, they were able to pick up on my lethargy. Is Ushimir Kinzo here? The lieutenant is looking for you. Stand up! No slouching about. Double time. First Lieutenant Yamamoto was the commanding officer in charge of the Rokujima garrison. Hey, Winter Bear! Welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for following me. Welcome, welcome. He was just another filthy coward trying to forget his fear with violence. He would often reprimand his subordinates for slacking off at the drop of a hat. Whenever he was in a good mood and started spouting off stories of his life, they were all about how much of a thug he had been, ignoring the rules of society. On and on about how so-and-so was a prick and he taught him a lesson, or how everyone was so scared of him that he got special treatment. He kept on talking about what a vile human he was as though it was a badge of honor. Normally I had nothing to do with his lieutenant, who I couldn't respect in any way. He'd always hang around with his non-commissioned subordinates. So long as I treated him with a snappy salute, I could more or less ignore him for the time being. Now the construction project on this island had been suspended indefinitely. There's no longer any use for an engineer like me. So why did the lieutenant ask to see me specifically? At that moment, I couldn't think of anything. Ah, Ushimiya, I heard you're good with foreign languages, is that true? I am proficient in both English and Chinese, sir. The lieutenant liked to brag about his education in front of the non-commissioned officers, but he held a bit of a grudge against me for being even more highly educated than him. Since he also felt uncomfortable having a subordinate way older than him, I wasn't exactly the type he'd be willing to confide in. Just the fact I knew several languages must have hurt his pride. What about Italian? I don't speak that. So you wouldn't be much help as an interpreter between me and an Italian person, would you? It should be possible if they could speak English as well. Ah, yes, very true. Have you ever talked with a foreigner in English? I have. Why on earth would you need an interpreter in a cave on an uninhabited island that even our superiors forgot about? This question made it clear some guest had arrived on Rokujima who would need an interpreter. Good. Ushimiya, you'll be my interpreter. That's an order. That evening, I found out exactly what he was talking about. That pointless submarine dock in the cavern had never been used. It was now being approached slowly by a submarine of the Italian Navy. Of course, I knew the Italians were our allies. However, this was the first time I'd seen anything from their military with my own eyes. What was the Italian Navy doing here? Didn't Italy surrender in 1943? What's going on? It was the Kingdom of Italy that surrendered. However, those who couldn't accept that surrender joined Mussolini and formed the RSI so they could continue fighting. The RSI? The Italian Social Republic, also known as the Sailor Republic. You know your history. The ignorant often call the Italians cowards, saying they surrendered first to the Axis powers in 1943. That's not true. The military of the Italian Social Republic fought bravely from the outbreak of war until April 29th, 1945. And Berlin fell just 3 days after that. Far from being cowards, they gave one hell of a fight. Still, I'm surprised the RSA Navy even had the possession of a submarine that could travel all the way to Japan. Even if they did, it's surprised they'd come out this far at all. Why would they come to Japan? To Rokujima? Yeah, interesting music choice. The submarine was both weather-worn and massive. I doubt anyone had even imagined a foreign submarine would come all the way here. But we never met even one of our own submarine docks. All the guards on Rokujima, of which there were only about 30, stood at attention as the submarine docked. Never seen the Italian military before. I heard a mine or some accident trashed their sub. From what I heard, it sounds like their ventilator broke down and the cabin got packed with chlorine gas. The lieutenant was hinting about there being something very important in there. You mean like a code machine or the blueprints for some kind of engine? I couldn't care less what they're carrying. I'm more surprised the higher-ups don't remember we exist. Hurry up, Ushimiya. How are you supposed to interpret from over there? Yes, sir. On top of the hatch was a young Italian saluting us. Normally, this should have been the job of a commissioned officer. His clothes looked like that of a sailor, and it really didn't look like he had the dignity and composure of a ship's captain. It probably meant all the commissioned officers in charge had died in the accident that had befallen the sub. Crew members crawled out of the hatch one by one, but they all looked pale and entirely worn out. I'm not sure how long ago the accident happened, but being crammed together in a tiny sub filled with chlorine gas for any amount of time couldn't be good for your health. Not only had the ventilators broke, but traveling about carelessly on the surface of the waters around Japan these days would be foolish in the extreme. It had been like a trip inside a can of poison gas. Almost all of them were unable to walk without leaning on someone else. They looked like a bunch of people staggering out of a hospital boat. Ushimiya, ask them who the captain is. Tell them that I'm in charge of this island. Welcome to Japan. Do any of you speak English? The crew members seemed to understand I was speaking English. It looked as none of them could speak it. Eventually, someone who seemed to be dressed as an officer saluted. Welcome to Japan. Are you the captain? I cannot speak English. Please wait. The officer answered in slow, laborious English. After asking us to wait, he shouted something to his subordinates in rapid Italian. It looked as though he was telling them to get someone among them who could speak English. Ushimiya, what are they talking about? They've asked us to wait. They might be looking for someone that can speak English. At that moment, I heard a high-pitched cough. It wasn't a man's cough. It was a woman's. I speak English. As she came down from the hatch, a woman with beautiful golden hair said this in English. In this filthy cavern, the appearance of one as beautiful as she was seemed like an angel descending upon us. Welcome to Japan. Is the captain there? The captain is dead. That man over there is the only officer left. My condolences. Can we do anything to assist you? We'd like some fresh air and water. Some of us are still having trouble breathing. And we'd like a place to rest. Hey, Mere Blue, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for stopping by. Good to see you. Yeah, Beatrice here is wearing a nice little scarf. Hair tied up. She's very pretty. We would be happy to help. Do any of the others understand English? The ones who did are all dead. I'm the only one left. Good night, Relix. Thank you so much for stopping by. Hope you have a good sleep. Ushimiya, what's that woman talking about? Who's the captain? That man from a second ago? Who is that woman? Get translating already, goddammit. The lieutenant had been yelling like that for a while now. He must have been surprised to see such a beautiful woman appear from a submarine. And more than a little annoyed to see all of her attention focused on me alone. It was a mark of how divinely beautiful she was. Sir, it seems she's the only one who understands English. She will act as their interpreter. Their captain is dead. That officer seems to be acting in his place. Who's that loud man who keeps yelling at you? Don't tell me he's your superior. Unfortunately, he is. He probably doesn't like seeing me have such a beautiful lady all to myself. Oh, I didn't expect flattery from an Asian. Your English is superb. I imagine you've been brought up very well. Unlike that rude man who keeps on shouting. They should have made you the officer in charge around here. No, I never expected flattery from a Westerner. You're an interesting man. What's your name? Ushimiya Kinzo. If you don't mind, may I ask for your name as well? Beatrice Castiglione. Welcome, Beatrice. Welcome to Japan. It was when I first met Beatrice, the woman who had captured my heart for the rest of my life. So Beatrice was an Italian? Yes. She was the daughter of a high-ranking RSI official. Apparently their most important cargo was her father himself. Sadly, he had already died by the time they reached Rokonjima. Why would a high official like that come to Japan? You're saying he went through the Suez Canal and crossed the Indian Ocean to come all the way here. That's a good point. If they want to reach one of their allies, Germany should have been much closer. So why would they make the long trip to Japan? It may have been part of some grand, outrageous strategy. I don't know the details, but shortly after I learned this submarine's mission was far from a minor one. Hey Kiefer, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for stopping by. Good to see you. I'm doing great. I hope you're having a great day too. Oh, this music is so pretty. They said they had been about 60 of them at the time of their departure. However, only about 10 of them, including Beatrice, had survived. The submarine had apparently hit a mine or something in the nearby waters and sustained a great deal of damage. They told us it had flooded rapidly with water, which had taken out the batteries and released a large amount of chlorine gas. The sub had to become completely incapable of continuing further, nothing but a massive lump of metal floating by the dock. Since the sub seemed to be carrying something of immense value, the higher-ups ordered us to investigate. After questioning the Italians, with Beatrice and me acting as double interpreters, we concluded this thing of immense value must have been her father himself. Apparently, Beatrice's father was extremely high up in the RSI hierarchy, and it was thought he might have worked alongside Mussolini himself. Though their massive voyage had apparently been part of some top-secret mission, now that the man himself and all the commissioned officers had died, their reason for coming to Japan remained a mystery. And our higher-ups were telling us to investigate, which meant that even they didn't know what it was. Their ship had broken down, their mission was unknown, and the high official they had been carrying was dead. And even the Japanese government didn't know why they were here. The Italians' great and perilous voyage had come to a meaningless and utterly fruitless end. That's a relief. I always assumed the seas of Japan would smell like soy sauce. What a coincidence! I've always thought Italians had hair made of pasta. Of course we do. You don't know how hard it is to get that perfect al dente texture. I imagine you Japanese all wear spaghetti al nero. I see you've done your homework. In Japan we use squid ink instead of shampoo. You really are amazing, Kinzo. It seems you know everything. Have you ever been to Italy? Never. I've read a lot of books, though. An Asian man reading Italian books. Wow, what kinds of books? Niccolo Machiavelli. And Dante Alighieri. So I know, of course, that you're the Eternal Lady. Oh, what a surprise. You must be quite the bookworm. Does that mean you come from some Japanese noble family? Who knows? You're completely different from those other savage-looking Japanese soldiers. I could tell. You must have come from a noble family. Are the Ushimiya some sort of Japanese aristocrats? Of course not. They just managed to strike it rich in the spinning industry in recent generations. I didn't study all that as part of some noble's hobby. I just did it because I wasn't allowed to do anything except read. Play around with roses and get myself drunk. There had been no trace of malice in Beatrice's words. It had been just a curious question asked to a friend from a faraway country. However, Beatrice was from a noble family herself, so she could tell. She could see the faint gloomy look on Kinzo's face. Forgive me, Kinzo. I didn't stop to consider why a high-class person like you would choose to take the position of a common soldier. I don't give a damn about my family line. When I die, the name Ushimiya will have no hold on me. Then I'll finally be free. So you joined the army because you wanted to die. You mustn't do that. Your family would be so sad. Family? I have no family. I have a wife for the sake of public appearances. And children. However, I've never wanted any of them. Everything is a fleeting daydream created by those selfish, greedy elders. So at least while I'm on this island, I can forget all about that and find some peace. Peace? I haven't spent each and every day complaining I wasn't sent to the front line. I haven't managed to die yet. I can't understand the pain you're going through. I do realize my thoughtless words have hurt you. Forgive me, Kinzo. Forgive me, Kinzo. Yes, those words are probably what it did. All the Japanese called me Ushimiya. It reminded me I was the property of the Ushimiya family every time they talked to me. But she was different. She called me Kinzo, not Ushimiya. So maybe just for the time I chat with her like this, I can forget that cursed family. Kinzo. I hadn't meant to make Beatrice feel guilty, but she seemed certain her thoughtless words had hurt me. Thank you. Huh? Since you always called me Kinzo, I feel like I'm finally my own man. I think I've finally met a person who truly sees me for who I am. Kinzo, you may be a foreigner I met in a distant land, but I can tell your heart is sensitive and beautiful. If we had grown up in the same neighborhood, I'm sure we would become fast friends. I'm happy too. You always call me Beatrice, not the daughter of the Castiglione family. We were both in the same position. Her Castiglione family must have been a rigid place as well. Though we came from different countries, we had finally found something we both understood. Yeah, this is kind of sweet. What could possibly go wrong? We all know it ends happily for him, right? Do you have a nickname that people close to you use? No, they usually just call me Kinzo. Well then, you should stop calling me Beatrice. All my close friends used to call me Beast. I'd like you to call me that too. Very well. From this point onwards, allow me to call you Beast as a sign of our friendship. Ah, come on. Don't be all stiff like that. We're already friends, okay? May, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you so much for the stretch. You guys at home, make sure you take the time to stretch as well. Thank you, thank you. Bright smile stretched across Beatrice's face. No matter how many decades pass, that smile will never fade from my memory. So by meeting Beatrice, you managed to regain your sense of self. Or most people would put it, he cheated on his wife. Ugh. If you plan to continue being rude, I suggest you get in the habit of covering your butt. After having his butt pinched once more, Will hopped around in pathetic agony. Leon, really? Could you just pick something else to, like, I don't know, give him a friendly punch or something? Does it really have to do this? So in your eyes, grandfather, Rokenjima was always special because you first met Beatrice here. Leon be like, here's a 1,000 years of pain. Indeed. If I had never come to this island, I would never have met her. It is truly an island of miracles. Is there anything left of that submarine base today? Yes, it's still there, near Kuadorian. It's in the shadows of a cove that can't be seen from the outside. After all, the fishermen never approached this supposedly ill-omened island. It's unlikely anyone besides me still knows of its existence. Is a 2-kilometer long underground passageway between Kuadori and the mansion a remnant of that base? That is correct. There was some nonsense about fortifying several locations across the island and connecting them with tunnels carved out of limestone caverns. I made use of that underground passage and built 2 mansions, one at each end of the island. 2 mansions, 2 families. The Ushimiya family mansion, and a mansion for the Kinzo released from the shackles of the family. Correct. It was something I needed. Another place for me to escape from the cursed name of Ushimiya. Yeah, everything's starting to come together. Still, I do feel bad for you. It must be awful to come all the way out here and be unable to fulfill your mission. I don't really know what Papa's plan was. He said we need to run far away to hide it until the time came. What is it? I don't know. It was something very important, and he planned to hide it for many years until the right moment. Oh, and he planned to hide it himself along with it. I know because he apologized to me for sending us to live a long time on foreign soil. Didn't that second lieutenant of yours say he had no cargo in particular? That you're transporting your father instead? Lieutenant Angelo doesn't trust you or the others. Even I know a few things he's kept hidden from you. He might even know what Papa's goal was and what the cargo is. Whatever it is, that's a mission for the Italian military. It has nothing to do with us. After all, we're allies. We should be able to trust each other. I have no doubts you're a good person, Kinzo. I even told Lieutenant Angelo you're a man we can trust, but why is it the men always go so rigid and uptight when they're in a strange land? Normally they're all very bright and cheery people. Ever since we came here, there's been this strange feeling of tension. Lieutenant Angelo's ordered that his subordinates be armed at all times. It's almost as though we're in enemy territory. That was true. The Italians were clearly the opposite of relaxed. The Japanese soldiers watching this began to suspect the Italians didn't really trust them at all. That's normal for a soldier. This is precisely the time for them to straighten up their guard so they don't embarrass themselves in front of a friendly army. They have a person stand watch every time they sleep, and they're still kept a lookout to make sure none of you approach the submarine, even though it's nothing more than an unusable scrap heap now. It almost feels as though they're clearly prejudiced against the Japanese, and it bothers me. True, they set up a constant sentry by the submarine, and refused to let any of the Japanese soldiers come near. They hadn't made the Japanese particularly happy. However, submarines are treated as classified in all countries. Maybe it was just natural for them to stop foreigners from approaching it without reason. They're probably uncomfortable being made to live in a way they aren't used to. The boat that's supposed to take you back to the mainland is still being delayed by weather and problems up on the command chain. Just how long will it take before they send you there? We'd been told a boat was being sent for them directly from the mainland, but apparently thanks to the weather, problems with the command chain, and the recent air raids, they had no ships they could spare on a forgotten island like this. There may have been political issues as well. After all, the Italians' homeland had already surrendered to the Allies. I didn't know the details. The only thing I knew for sure was they'd been stuck on Rokkenjima for 2 whole weeks, and no one had come to get them. Of course, we had some small boats on Rokkenjima. There was nothing physically stopping us from taking them to a nearby island. Still, Rokkenjima was technically a top-secret base, and contact with the outside world had been strictly forbidden. Well, there's nothing we could do about it, and it isn't all that bad, really. After all, if a boat did come for us, I'd probably never see you again, Kinzo. True. To me, those 2 weeks were the first time I truly ever lived. The faint 20 years before all seemed to vanish in the sparkle of that pair of weeks. I realized she'd have to leave this place eventually, and yet the single moment felt so rich and dazzling that I felt myself wishing it could last forever. Then I heard a voice calling for Beatrice in Italian. It's Lieutenant Angelo. Looks like he wants you for something. Probably just scold me. These days he keeps yapping on about how I shouldn't get too friendly with the Japanese soldiers. The second lieutenant approached, saluting Kinzo, and after glancing at Beatrice as though asking her to translate something, he began to speak in Italian. Judging by his tone, it sounded like something serious. Lieutenant Angelo has something very important to say, so he wants to talk with your commanding officer. He wants your help with something. I don't know what. Something important. Got it. I'll go find Lieutenant Yamamoto. Lieutenant Angelo had 2 of his subordinates with him, and wore a stern expression on his face. They didn't have to say anything for us to realize this had to be something very serious. That's it! Lift it up! The winch creaked and the thick chains rang out with a dull clang. Very, very slowly, it was lifted out of the submarine's cargo hold. Now I get it. So this is why those Italians didn't want us near their sub. The first lieutenant and the others looked up, and the winch was slowly lifting up, and all of them wearing unpleasant, forced smiles. Unbelievable! So this is what Papa brought all this way? Incredible. I've never seen anything like this. was a mountain of gold ingots. Those carefully piled bars were slowly being lifted out of the cargo hold, one group after another. This gold had been their true cargo. I don't know where they were planning to take it. They might have been trying to sneak it to Japan, one of their allies, or they might have been on their way to hide it in some remote area. Was it some sort of strategy? Conspiracy? Embezzlement? Top secret transportation of wealth? This incomprehensible amount of gold led to all sorts of dark suspicions, but we didn't know anything about the truth. All told, the gold weighed an incredible 10 tons. It was the only truth we could wrap our minds around at the moment. They had strongly resisted showing this to us. However, the submarine could no longer make sea, and was apparently continuing to take in water bit by bit. Rokonjima had been outfitted in an extremely slipshod way, so we had no means of repairing it. Also, although we could unload the sub, there was no way we'd be able to lift it up again once it filled with water and sunk to the bottom. Now that transporting the gold away had clearly become an impossible goal, they apparently decided on unloading it. Of course, they made no effort to explain the reason behind all this gold. They just asked us to help them take it out. Why would they take so much gold out of the country? Couldn't they have changed the course of the war with this much wealth? Weapons change the course of war, but after the war, they aren't useful for anything. Money can also change the course, but it remains just as valuable after the war. There's no longer any way to change the course of this war. The Axis powers would probably all surrender, leading to an Allied victory. Anyone could tell this simply by looking at the American planes flying across the sky day after day. However, gold does not lose its value after war. Everyone stared upwards, dumbfounded, as the winch slowly lifted the dully sparkling gold. It's all coming together. They're investing in anime. Well, thanks for the stretch, Karen. Thank you. I needed that. You guys should stretch too. Thank you. Lieutenant Yamamoto, the Italians don't want us to tell the mainland about this gold. Huh. So they don't want our country to snatch it away from them. What did he say? He's saying your group probably doesn't want it reported because you fear that Japan will steal it away from you. Lieutenant Angelo is actually more afraid of Italy itself finding out. To us, our homeland's current government is a mere puppet set up by the Allied forces. If they find out, the gold will be returned to them. However, that would be the same as handing the gold over to our enemies. They come all this way to make sure the gold didn't fall into enemy hands. They needed to hide it from that puppet government until their homeland could be truly restored. Ushimiya, make a proposal to the Italians. Tell them that we wish to offer our assistance. What sort of assistance? Let's see if I got this straight. They want that gold kept secret so their homeland doesn't find out about it. But they'll need to find at least a transport ship if they plan to carry it off this island. If they try that though, the mainland will hear about it, which means the Italian government will too. That's right. In other words, there's no longer any way to take that gold off Rokonjima. Their mission must have been to hide the gold in absolute secrecy until the day of their homeland's restoration. Later on, several plausible rumors would circulate about how Nazi Germany also moved much of its secret wealth to certain hidden areas in South America just prior to its collapse. It was a very natural conclusion to reach. That submarine was their only method of transporting the gold in secrecy, and it's become completely useless. They can't fully stop the water from seeping in. It'll probably sink completely before much longer. There's no longer any way for them to transport the gold in secrecy. In other words, their mission had ended in failure here in the Far East. So just how is Lieutenant Yamamoto proposing we assist them? The Rokonjima base is top secret and no one knows about it. The islanders in the surrounding area think this island's ill-omened and deserted, so they never come near it. Catch my drift, Ushimiya? What did he say? As we told you earlier, no one knows about this base. And as you can see, it's of no use strategically, so the higher-ups have already forgotten about it. It sounds like Lieutenant Yamamoto suggesting you hide the gold on this island. Beatrice quickly translated this and told Lieutenant Angelo. He began discussing something rapidly with his subordinates. They didn't look happy. Japan may have been their ally, but they probably didn't want to leave the gold for reconstructing their motherland in Asian hands. Still, it was hard to imagine any other option for them. It's a fierce debate. Some say there's no other option, while others think we should remain loyal to our homeland no matter the cost. Lieutenant Angelo is stuck between a rock and a hard place. The final order given to them by their fallen homeland was to hide the gold. However, by now, there was no way for that order to be carried out successfully. If the mainland or their own homeland found out, the gold would probably be confiscated by the wrong people from their point of view. If they really wanted to carry out their homeland's orders faithfully, Lieutenant Yamamoto's proposal was extremely reasonable. Though he couldn't understand their words, he seemed to realize how divided they were. If we help him out, we'll be able to hide the gold in total secrecy. Fortunately, there's an abandoned tunnel that stretches all the way across this island. He's saying that if you hide the gold underground and bury it on this island, no one will be able to find it. Our side is saying it sounds like a realistic proposal. However, there seems to be some resistance to accepting Japanese help. Yeah, thanks for coming, Ash. Hope you have a good sleep. Rest well. It seems they're having difficulty coming to a decision. Huh. Do you really have a choice, Italians? You don't think you could hide that gold without our help, do you? And I doubt you want to leave it lying on the beach for much longer. Lieutenant Angelo wants to minimize the number of people who know about the gold. He doesn't trust the Japanese, but it looks like he's decided that Lieutenant Yamamoto's plan is the best possible option. But he seems suspicious. About what? He's wondering whether they really intend to move a full 10 tons of gold and swear themselves to secrecy without any sort of compensation. 50%. Sir, you can't be... Hand over half the gold to us. With that as our work wages, we'll hide the other half nice and safe for them. It's telling you to give us half of it. The instant Beatrice translated that sentence, Lieutenant Angelo slammed his hands on the desk and stood up. Instead of flinching, Lieutenant Yamamoto, true to his boasts of once being a thug who everyone feared, actually looked even more relaxed and confident than he had previously. After all, they really don't have the option of refusing. We could demand 80% if we wanted. I've lowered that to 50% as a sign of good faith. Of course, we aren't the only ones with leverage here. If the Italians decide to leak this to the outside, all the gold will probably be taken by Japan or Italy. We won't even get a single yen out of it. This can only work if we're both partners in crime here. He's saying we should all be partners in the crime of embezzlement. By now he's already moved on, speaking as an individual, not a soldier. I don't believe it, so the gold has blinded him. Lieutenant Yamamoto was grinning. It really did look as though he had been blinded by greed, just as Beatrice said. If they leave it piled up where it is, you can be sure it'll be noticed when the boat comes from the mainland. If that happens, none of us will profit. They ought to accept our proposal and hide the gold as soon as possible. It sounds like Lieutenant Angelo is dead set on the Japanese and Italian governments not finding out about this. He wants to carry out his duty until the end. So what exactly does that mean? He wants the gold buried deep within the island, even if he has to pay some percentage to buy your silence. Of course, some of his subordinates object strongly. They're saying that 50% is out of the question. Ushimiya, how are they doing? They also don't want any more people laying eyes on the gold. However, they seem to object to the portions. Lieutenant Angelo says they'll consider 10%, though he's also saying he's fairly sure Lieutenant Yamamoto won't accept that. Ushimiya, what's the Italians' answer? They say they'll consider 10%. This time, it was Lieutenant Yamamoto who slammed down the desk. The Italians didn't flinch either. An incredible tension filled the small room. However, despite his violent outburst as a second ago, Lieutenant Yamamoto's expression still looked smug and in control. He was quite confident he now had the initiative. 10%! Now that's a modest proposal. Okay, sure, I'll give up 10%. We'll split it 40-60. Tell them I won't go any lower than that. 40% for the Japanese, 60% for the Italians. The lieutenant was talking tough, but in truth these negotiations were being made on equal footing. If the Italians just wanted the gold for themselves, there wouldn't have been much of a problem. But what if they were true patriots, and decided to return the gold for the purpose of reconstruction, even to the defeated puppet government of the homeland? If so, they would probably report the existence of the gold to the Italian embassy. Eventually, the Italian government would petition the allied nations for the retrieval of the gold. They probably wouldn't all make it back to Italy, but it might be used effectively to repair and rebuild their battered towns. If that happened, Lieutenant Yamamoto's friends would only be able to sneak out a few ingots at most. He was greedily planning to make his own treasure island, so he and his subordinates could have an enormous fortune all to themselves. If he wanted to succeed, the Italians would have to keep the presence of the gold quiet. But there's one thing I don't get. If Lieutenant Angelo doesn't want to let anyone have the gold, he could just let the submarine sink. Why do you have to have it unloaded? I'd rather not think about it, but Lieutenant Angelo might have started planning to embezzle the gold as soon as he realized their mission would be impossible to complete. Right now he's asking his subordinates for their opinions, both as soldiers and individuals with families waiting for them back home. The most straight-laced soldiers are furious. This discussion between the Italians has become fierce and emotional. Though their homeland had fallen, they had come all this way in accordance with his orders. They'd probably been given this mission because they were particularly faithful and duty-minded soldiers. It seemed they couldn't just agree to a foreigner's proposal to embezzle and split up the gold. Lieutenant Angelo looked like he was doing all he could to calm the unexpected fervent rage of his subordinates. Looks like the gold is blinding them too. Everyone's mixing up their true feelings with how they want to be seen, and they can't make up their minds. How's their answer coming? Ushimiya! Peace. Lieutenant Yamamoto's asking for an answer. They're saying they want some time to think. I had you talked to, so I was able to distract myself from our current situation, but it wasn't true for the rest of them. They lost a lot of comrades at the end of a very long journey, and now they're here in a tight spot. They've even lost their mission and the one thing they could depend on to guide them. They don't know what to do. Sir, they say they'd like some time. Oh, sure, let them talk it over all they want. But they better not take too long. If we're gonna hide the gold, that'll take time and effort. Make your decision before noon tomorrow. That's all, Italians. He's giving you until noon tomorrow. That bastard, he's practically threatening you. Lieutenant Angelo says he'll ask for everyone's thoughts on the matter. Which way do you think they'll go? It'll probably be tough going. It seems Lieutenant Angelo is willing to consider splitting it, but the subordinates and the others will probably oppose that. All of them have lost close friends on their voyage to the Far East. They're firm in their desire to do their duty for their homeland. Will they refuse Lieutenant Yamamoto's proposal? Even if they do, the gold will just fall into someone else's hands. If nothing is going to be left anyway, Lieutenant Angelo suggests they each sneak at least one ingot back with them, and some of the others seem to agree, but men always get carried away at times like this. Even I can't guess what they'll do. I imagine the Italians had some complicated feelings about all this. Hey Luciana, welcome to the stream today. Thank you so much for the stretch reminder as well. Thank you, thank you. Make sure everyone's sitting up straight in your seats. What was Kinzo's wife's name again? I'm not even sure if they told us that. She's not important to the story, so they never really mentioned her by name. In their eyes, the Italy that surrendered was probably a little better than an enemy country. Yeah, Kinzo's wife, like Platt's wife from Octopath 2. Letting the gold go back there would make their entire voyage meaningless. However, embezzling and divvying up the gold would also make their whole voyage meaningless. The country they felt obligated to serve had already fallen. That alone destroyed the significance of their journey. Not a happy story for them. If it's bound to be meaningless anyways, wouldn't keeping hold of even just a few ingots be better than nothing? Sure, if you want to calculate straight up profit and loss, but men aren't like that. The Italians were gathered in a cramped room, arguing fiercely. I don't like it. We must remain true to our soldier's spirit until the end for the sake of our fallen comrades. And how do you define remaining true? By hiding the gold on this island? By accepting the proposal of those Asians? We can't trust them, especially that Yamamoto person. We mustn't let our guards down. Unloading the gold and letting the Japanese see it was a huge mistake. We should have let it sink with the sub. A wonderful idea. Just let it sink right inside a Japanese base. Would have been pulled up eventually. That wouldn't hide anything. It doesn't matter. There's no way to get the gold off this island without anyone knowing. If we had just taken the honorable path and scuttled the sub, none of this would have happened. If we had known the sub would be broken beyond repair, why did the lieutenant commander contact the Japanese military and ask for help? How was he planning to carry out our mission if they found out about the gold? Our mission was a failure from the moment he asked them for help. All of us have families waiting for us back home. And we've more than done our part, I'd say, voyaging all the way to this island country in the Far East. You may call this fair and just payment for our services. Lieutenant Angelo, if the Japanese proved to be less than amicable, we could be prepared to take extreme measures. What do you mean by extreme measures, Corporal? Someone gulped. A stiff tension hung over the room. Japanese here are pushovers. They're all cowards with no battle experience. And we're the elite. We know the layout of almost the entire base, along with a number of Japanese troops and how they're arranged. If Lieutenant Angelo gives the order, we should be able to subdue them quickly. Only a few of them, Yamamoto included, look like fighters. The rest are just laborers attached to the military. It may look like they have the advantage of numbers, but we have the greater military force. If we kill the Japanese, what exactly are we going to say when the boat comes to pick us up? You really think that'll work? There should be plenty of ways to work it, as long as the corpses aren't found. Lieutenant Angelo, it'll be easy to subdue this base. If we kill Yamamoto and the few strong fighters, the laborers will probably surrender easily. Let's have them carry the gold and bury it. Of course, we'll have to silence them afterwards. Are you suggesting we massacre all of them? Let's do it. If we kill them all, no one will know about the gold. At that moment, the supposedly locked door opened slightly, and a metal object was thrown in. Granada! As the yell rang out, the table was kicked over to be used as a shield, and they all dropped to the floor. However, in this cramped room, it probably wouldn't do them any good. The Italians are all prepared for death. Huh? A dud! It's a dud! Fortunately, the shoddy grenade was a dud. The door was slammed open, and 3 Japanese soldiers wielding pistols jumped in. Damn it, it's a dud! Kill the Italians! Kill the Italians! Return fire! Fire at will! In this small room, no matter who shot where, it was bound to hit someone. The exchange of bullets instantly caused a rain of blood, with casualties on both sides. The 3 who had jumped in were covered with bullet holes and fell over, moaning and thrashing. Ugh! Gino! Damn it, they got his lung, we can't save him! We should consider ourselves lucky. If that grenade had gone off, we'd all be dead. Grain was still rolling about on the floor. It had been a surprise attack. Lieutenant Yamamoto had probably judged the negotiations wouldn't go his way and had decided to make the first move. Or maybe he'd been planning from the beginning to put them in a position where they'd be gathered in one place to discuss his offer. Rokujima was their island. If they killed all the Italians, then not half, but all the gold would go to the Japanese. There was a chance the grenade might go off late. The Italians rushed out into the corridor. They heard gunfire from down the hallway. It was coming from the direction of the submarine dock. Clearly the troops guarding the pilot gold were being attacked. Lieutenant Angelo, what are your orders? We have no choice. Kill the Japanese. Lieutenant! These guys are good. Those Italians aren't your ordinary soldiers. I see. They needed men good enough to guard that gold after all. We have the numbers. Keep your cool, surround them and kill them. Let's hunt some Italians. As soon as I heard the sound of repeated gunfire, I knew. I knew something which had been smoldering since the time the gold was unloaded and finally burst. The eyes of our soldiers looking at the gold hadn't been normal. Yes, those eyes had been entranced by demons. The Italians had been pushed to the limits by the heavy burden they bore. Who wouldn't have snapped after being trapped in a distant land where you couldn't understand language or the writing? Thinking I had to do something, I ran towards the sound of gunfire. Looking back on it, that was an extremely stupid thing to do. That sound meant there were people shooting at each other. People killing each other. Yet, unarmed as I was, I dashed towards the sound, as I was trying to mediate some schoolyard fight. It didn't take long before I learned how foolish and naive that was in the heat of battle. Hiroka! Wards Officer Hiroka was lying face down, his entire body drenched in blood. Judging by the trail of blood behind him, it was clear he had somehow managed to crawl here from a different room before dying. No, he was still twitching. He might not be dead yet. But on this island without a doctor... No, even if we had a doctor, who could possibly save a man who had been shot this many times in the chest? When I looked at the room he must have crawled out of, I saw 2 more blood-stained Japanese corpses. They're I fell backwards pathetically on my butt, my mouth hanging open in shock. Come to think of that was the first time I ever faced death in my life. The entire world was at war. Even though millions were dying both east and west, this was the first time I met with a person's death directly. Ridiculous. Didn't I join the army hoping to die? Didn't I whine about not being sent to the front lines? Yeah, so rejoice, Kinzo. Isn't this the death you were looking for? Why not spread your hands and yell out loud? Come for me, magnificent death. Someone came running towards me. It was a colleague of mine, a Japanese man. Tajima-kun. Run! He dashed towards me, pale-faced and out of breath. His face seemed horribly contorted with terror. Mine probably looked the same. Tajima-kun, what happened? Run away. We'll all be killed. Someone yelled in Italian, and at the same time Tajima-kun let out a scream. Then he grabbed onto me and fell to the floor. A red stain was spreading across his back before my eyes. Tajima-kun. Run. Ugh. As he spat bubbles of blood, he said that one word and died. But the shock of seeing someone die right in front of me did not freeze my heart. As a fundamental level, all living things are unconcerned with the deaths of others. The one thing that matters is whether they themselves die or not. It was the barrel of the gun the Italian soldier was pointing that froze my heart. Tajima-kun's back burst once more as he leaned against me. Flesh tore, blood splattered, the warm splash of it covered my face. Was the Italian still trying to finish him off even though he stopped moving for good? How foolish I'd been. Can I still understand the scene in front of me? Rejoice, Kinzo, now you'll finally get what you wanted all this time. The Italian hand fired to finish off Tajima-kun. He had been aiming at the man Tajima-kun had fallen upon. Me, Ushimiya Kinzo. I pushed his corpse aside, scrabbled against the floor, and dashed away, tumbling over myself. My hands had pushed off against the floor hard enough to tear out the ring fingernail off my left hand. When faced with death, humans truly can resist with all they've got. I tumbled over and over as I ran, scraping up parts of my body. It was painful, hot, but that didn't matter at all. I heard the yelling in Italian come from behind me over and over again. It felt like they were running, chasing after me. I didn't want to look back, so I kept on running and running as though the Italians were right behind me. This is death. Didn't you want to die? No, I don't want to die. Why? Didn't I want to die so badly? But now I know how wonderful it is to be alive. She taught me. Beast did. I can only be free when I talk with her. No, by talking with her, I finally came alive for the first time. I was born. I want to live. I want to live. I want to live. I want to live. I don't want to die. I want to live and see her right now. If I don't see her, I'll die. I'll be killed. Stay cool, Kinzo. She might be killed too. If you live and she dies, you might as well be dead. Before I knew it, my face was covered in tears, snot, and saliva. When I stumbled into something and fell, I was finally able to come to my senses a little. I could still hear intermittent gunfire. The gunfight was still going on, and it had spread throughout the entire base. Beast, are you still okay? I'll find her and take her to a safe place. The lieutenant will probably kill all the Italians to steal the gold. Beast probably wouldn't be an exception. Beast. Beast! I lived for the first time after meeting you. I was born, so if you die, I'll die again. I can feel every cell in my body being reborn, not as Ushimiya Kinzo, but as a completely different Kinzo. Of course, I was terrified I might really be shot if I went back, but I didn't want to die anymore. To truly die, so I was able to overcome my fear. Beast! Rubens, what on earth is going on? What is all this? There's no need for you to know. Just stay hidden there. Don't come out until one of your fellow countrymen calls for you. I heard an Italian voice. He's over here. Damn yellow monkeys. Rubens stood with Beatrice behind his back and neatly shot the two men rushing at him with two 9mm bullets from his Beretta M19934. However, one of the 8mm bullets from their Type 94 semi-auto pistols went straight through Rubens' chest. All three of the shooters were struck in the chest and fell down in a heap. No! Rubens! Go up to the surface. You have to hide in the forest. Rubens! My. Aren't we chatty? The next person to appear was the commanding officer of the Japanese soldiers, Yamamoto. The blast of 3 guns had just sounded. Adding on Beatrice's screams, it was hardly surprising he had noticed the encounter. If I had to come to this anyways, we should have taken this woman as a hostage in the first place. Damn annoying, that's what they are. Yamamoto spat. Beatrice used that moment to snatch up Ruben's gun. Ah! Well, look at you reaching to pick up a gun without missing a beat. Italian women sure are scary. Damn it, both of you screwed up. He spat this last part at the 2 dying men who lay moaning at his feet. However, what happened to them wasn't particularly surprising. It wasn't the first time it had happened either. In this tiny cramped tunnel, nearly everyone had met head-on. When both sides shot recklessly in such a situation, the result was 2 corpses. So whoever sensed another person and pulled the trigger quickest won. That was the only way to survive this battle without a bullet in your chest. Because of this, both Japanese and Italians had killed each other without hesitation, and they sometimes even pulled the trigger on oncoming allies. In the midst of all this were several Japanese men who stumbled into the fight, wondering what was going on. It didn't matter whether the other person was holding a gun or not. Everyone had reflexively pulled the trigger at the sight of anyone other than themselves, trying to stay alive. The entire base had been wrapped up in this slaughter. There was a fierce gun battle taking place on the submarine dock, and a massacre resembling a hunt was taking place inside the base. Most of the non-combatants assigned to this base were killed before they knew what was going on. The Italians were indeed quite seasoned troops, but their numbers began to drop bit by bit. Blood-stained corpses were scattered everywhere. At first it had probably been a proper gunfight. However, as their minds began to grow weary and numb, it devolved into the most basic cause of wars throughout humanity, the desire to kill all foreigners you don't understand. Whether they heard words they didn't understand, they pulled the trigger. By that point, the screams of foreigners sounded no different than those of man-shaped beasts. After all, they couldn't understand pleading in another language, so it had long ago turned into a mere massacre. As the number of dead surpassed the number of living, silence began to return to the base. And just when it felt as though everyone had died, you could hear the desolate sound of the wind blowing through the caves. There would be a sudden scream, and the crisp sound of a gun. You'd remember the massacre wasn't yet over. This happened over and over again, and eventually a true silence fell. It marked the pitiful end for those led astray by gold. Hey Bubbles, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for dropping by today. Good to see you. The leader of the Italian soldiers, Angelo, had managed to survive somehow. He encountered nothing but the corpses of friend and foe. All was quiet once more in the base. If he was careless enough to call out, he might be shot from the shadow somewhere. So he snuck about like a panther, breathing quietly and searching for remaining enemies. There was no sign or trace of any living person. Maybe all the people in this base had died. Damn Japanese. Japanese struck first. By that time, we were also talking about killing them. They simply made the first move as military men. So perhaps we should be grateful for this day. Even if the boat had come to pick us up, there would have been no honor left for us. We would have been mere failures in our mission, unfit to face our dead comrades. Perhaps dying here in the Far East alongside my gun is a more fitting end for a soldier. I noticed the sound of shuffling feet coming from around the corner and strained to hear. Is someone seriously wounded and dragging their feet? Noticing them before they notice me greatly helps my chances. At this stage, there's no point in taking prisoners. We must dispose of all the Japanese. I'll dash around the corner, quickly check to see who they are, and shoot if it's a Japanese person. Nothing more. I've been hiding my footsteps the whole time. They probably don't know I'm here. Once the shuffling footsteps had come close enough, Angelo leaned around the corner and raised his gun. The voice that reached him spoke Italian. Run! Huh? You! I've been looking for you, Lieutenant Angelo. That makes all of you. I've been counting Italian corpses, you see. Lieutenant Angelo, are you okay? Blood poured from Angelo's chest. His gun fell to the floor. Then hit his knees. Then the rest of his body crumpled. and stopped moving. Yamamoto's accuracy with a gun wasn't particularly stellar. However, Angelo had waited until they were fairly close to jumping out, so Yamamoto had made the shot. He managed to hit even with a short-barreled handgun in one hand, and a woman hostage in the other. Really though, our Rokujima garrison was pathetic. Am I the only one who's not dead? Trash, all of them. Can't you fight without using a woman as your shield, you brute? Let go. Quiet. Noisy, these Italian girls. If you just be cooperative, at least I spare your life. It was such an obvious lie that even he wore a bitter smile. The Italians were spies working for the enemy, and they all died along with the garrison in the gunfight. Since this was a story Yamamoto wanted to tell, he couldn't afford to have any Italian survivors. By this point, he wouldn't be able to keep the entire pile of gold, but he should be able to grab as many as he could carry. Even that would be worth a huge amount of money. Beatrice suddenly swung her head, smashing Yamamoto's nose hard. Someone help! Someone! Yeah! You bitch. Ugh. She almost managed to escape. However, Yamamoto quickly grabbed her leg and tripped her. She fell onto her back and Yamamoto mercilessly stomped his foot down on her stomach and pointed his gun at her. I don't make a hobby of taming tomboys. Die. Lieutenant Yamamoto, she has nothing to do with this. Let go of her. Kinzo jumped out from the shadows. He was holding a gun he'd stolen from one of the corpses. Ushimiya. Ah, so you're alive. Let go, you're hurting her. No, I don't think Yamamoto and Beatrice don't understand each other. I guess it's from context, probably. Because you see Beatrice's text in English has like the single quotation marks and his has a double. It's just because the way they translate it, it's kind of hard to tell, I think. It was you, wasn't it? You tipped the Italians off. What are you talking about? Yamamoto didn't know the grenade had been a dud. He'd been sure the surprise attack would work, but it hadn't. So he assumed that Kinzo must have tipped them off. It's your fault the surprise attack failed and we're stuck like this. You turncoat, you traitor to your country. I know you've been working with them through this woman. Can't you see you caused all this because you're blinded by gold? Run, Kinzo! This man has shot people begging for their lives. He'll shoot you too. Don't talk Italian. If you open your mouth again, I won't hesitate to shoot. It hurts. Yamamoto ground his heel into Beatrice's gut. Stop it! Stop it! She has nothing to do with this. Uh-huh. Are you pointing a gun at a superior officer? Stop and think a bit, fool. If we agree to keep the same story, we can have that pile of gold all to ourselves, okay? I could only grab a few on my own, but we could work together, and we'd be able to sneak off with even more. I don't mean this as your superior officer. Let's split it equally between us as men. Last time you offered to split the gold 50-50, you tried to slit their throats. Ushimiya. Looks like you prefer lead to gold. Without any hesitation, Yamamoto raised the barrel of his gun towards Kinzo and pulled the trigger. It grazed Kinzo's right ear. If Yamamoto's aim had just been a bit better, the bullet would have slammed into Kinzo's face. Kinzo! How could you? Not letting Yamamoto's momentary distraction go to waste, Beatrice lashed out and planted her right foot in Yamamoto's crotch. After moaning in pain, a demonic expression flashed across Yamamoto's face, and he stomped on her chest. Beast! You bitch! Die! Beatrice shut her eyes tightly, hoping she could withstand the coming pain. No one wants to watch the moment they get shot. You... A blood splash poured out of Yamamoto's chest. Just as you took so many lives for your own personal reasons, I'll take your life for mine. Could Yamamoto hear Kinzo's words until the end? In his last moments, he seemed to grin. Then slowly, he fell backwards with a spurt of blood. Kinzo! Are you okay? I was sure you'd been shot. Ugh. Beatrice tried to stand up, but then doubled over and started coughing. Beast! Are you hurt? My ribs are hurting. That brute really was stomping them hard. Will you be okay? I hope they aren't broken. Italian women don't break so easily. But thanks. I owe you my life. If you hadn't come, it would have all ended there. Ugh. Yamamoto had shown no mercy. Her ribs were probably cracked. We didn't have the option of waiting, possibly for several days, for that ship that was coming. I made the decision to carry her away from the island. The man who kept yelling about preserving the secrecy of the base is lying there dead. The next island over, Nijima, is close. A small boat should be more than enough to get us there. I need to take you to a hospital. The wound might be more serious than you realize. That's interesting. I never knew there was a hospital on this island. There isn't. A boat should get us to the next island over. We'll get you to a hospital. As for me, unless I cleverly cover up what happened on this island, I might just end up getting court-martialed just for being here. I have a request. Please, don't take me to a hospital. Why? If we go to a hospital and the embassy is contacted, I'll eventually be sent back to Italy. If that happens, I'll be interrogated about all kinds of things. I won't acknowledge the bastards who let Mama die. There's no homeland for me to return to now. This is the end for me, so there's nowhere I want to go anymore. Lieutenant Angelo, Rubens, everyone who was so kind to me, they're all dead. And because of that, you want to die here too? I thought you said Italian women were weak. Live! Hey, Kinzo. What does it mean to live? You're the one who taught me, aren't you? Living is more than just breathing. I don't want to go back to Italy. Peace. You said that you were dead until you met me. But it's the same for me. I died in that submarine. My homeland fell, Mama died, even Papa died. I prayed our sub would just sink to the bottom of the ocean. So when we reached this place, I was actually disappointed we'd survived. Then right after that, Lieutenant Angelo started asking whether anyone could speak English. When Kinzo met Beatrice, he finally forgot about dying. And when Beatrice met Kinzo, she also forgot about dying. Now that I've lost my homeland, my family and my friends, my only wish is for you to kidnap me and take me away with you. Peace. But I know that's a wish that couldn't possibly come true. So at the very least, I want to be with you until the boat comes for us. I don't care about the pain in my chest. After all, when the boat comes and takes me away, I'll die. Beatrice spoke this, smiling softly. She did her best to hide the pain in her chest. Please, Kinzo, just for the few days until the boat comes. Kidnap me. That's a wish I can't grant. Looking apologetic, Kinzo lifted Beato up and gently sat her in the boat. Coward. So Japanese men are weak after all. You're right. I am a coward. So I can only grant you half of your wish. With a clunk, he placed it, wrapped in a jacket, in the boat. What do you mean? The part about until the boat comes for you. That's the part I can't grant. Huh? What do you mean? Kidnapping you. That part, I will do. Kinzo. Yeah, Kinzo, you rascal. There has to be a doctor on Nijima. I'm wearing a Navy uniform. I should be able to pass myself off as a survivor of a boat, carrying a VIP that was sunk by enemy ships. If the doctor happens to be of the greedy sort, all the better. After all, I have right here the golden magic to make people do what I say. A witch from a distant country took my lifeless body and gave me a soul. A woman came to me with the gold and revived me with her magic. You are a witch. The Golden Witch. Yes, the Golden Witch. Even though I use the same recipe as everyone else, only my alchemy can turn pasta into smoking black heap. Just like you, I'm nothing but a corpse, allowed to live just as long as you're with me. If you go, I'll die straight away. I won't let you die. Really? no matter what. Take responsibility, okay? After all, you're the one kidnapping me. I see. So Kinzo-san told you that much. And wait, was it you? You're the Nijima doctor who grandfather took Beatrice to see. Why so shocked? It should have leapt to the mind ever since the word Nijima doctor. All of a sudden, a soldier of the Navy appeared along with a foreign woman. Of course, I was astounded. And then he actually told me to treat her wounds confidentially, since their presence was a military secret. Was that the first time you met grandfather? Yes. That was when we first met. So you're the greedy doctor who followed orders for the sake of gold? That's a bit harsh. He suddenly brought in a foreign woman, patient, explained to me this was a military secret, promised he'd pay the medical fees later, and handed me a gold ingot as collateral. I didn't want to get involved with any funny business. I was reluctant, to say the least. I see your point. But in the end, you did conceal Beatrice, didn't you? I may not be as skilled as Kinzo, but I do have some familiarity with English. I managed to overhear part of their conversation, and that was enough to convince me they were not troublesome people. Ugh. Of course, if I were to say that ingot didn't tempt me, that would be a lie. I was much younger than you see. What happened to her next? Hey Lace, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for coming by. Welcome, welcome. Did you have a good stream, Lace? Hey V, good to see you. That shiny Turtwig, good to see you. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for giving him the shout out as well. You guys, make sure you go check out Lace when you get a chance. Really cool streamer, plays Final Fantasy XIV and other RPGs and other mystery games as well. So he has a lot of similar taste to me. So if you like my stuff, I'm sure you'll like Lace as well. Hey Val, welcome to the stream. Welcome, welcome. Oh, thank you for calling Kirby, and thank you for the stretch. Yeah, we're... Oh, thank you, thank you. We're reaching closer to the end of our stream. We just heard a very interesting story that told us a lot about backstory for these characters here. So, yeah, things have been interesting. See, I like episode 7. It actually starts to give you more closure, and also, it's kind of nice actually having, like, a continuous story without this flip-flopping between like the meta world and the real world, right? Just a straightforward story with emotions told and beautiful music, right? Alright, you're playing Final Fantasy 16. I hope you're enjoying that as well. Everyone I know has been having fun with it. Yeah, thanks for coming by, Turtwig. Have a good sleep. I treated her for some time before a messenger from the Ushimiya family came and said she would be moved to Odawara. They took her away. So grandfather didn't come to get her himself. Regardless of how Kinzo explained away the incident on Rokunjima, he probably wouldn't be able to move about freely for some time afterwards. Precisely. Kinzo-san has said that deceiving the military was the greatest challenge of his life. So Beatrice went to Odawara, and then what? I have heard she hid in one of their unused villas. After all, Kinzo already had a family at that time. It must have been tricky to manage. Yeah, thanks for coming, V. Hope you have a good sleep. So leading a double life was business as usual for Kinzo, even before Kuwadorian. Oof. What are you doing? Is your butt itching? And later on, Beatrice and grandfather continued their happy relationship in the villa from then on. I've heard it was a modest, peaceful life. Several years later, they had a child. So Kuwadorian's Beatrice was born. The birth didn't go well. It was a truly sad tale. You don't mean she died? Don't be surprised. Kinzo believed his daughter was Beatrice reborn. You can't neglect the heart. It's possible to reason it out. You're right. My apologies. I don't know how many years Kinzo-san spent with her in Odawara. However, judging by the Kinzo-san we grew to know afterwards, one could tell how deeply he loved her, even if they only had a few years together. So this probably goes back to the riddle of the epitaph, right? When he talks about his beloved hometown. I see. And that he made Kuodorian for his daughter. Kinzo-san cleverly made use of the submarine's gold to build up a fortune in a flash. Then he made use of his considerable skills in English to make connections with the GHQ, becoming immensely wealthy in a short span of time. There's no need to explain this part to you, Leon-san. Yes, he used that vast wealth, bought Rokujima and built the mansion. The remaining relatives in Odawara scoffed at grandfather, thinking he was crazy to buy an entire deserted island. If you can carry 10 tons of gold around your pocket, Kinzo probably wouldn't have bought Rokujima. He hid the gold somewhere in Rokujima, built up a fortune with the ingots he'd taken out of it, then bought up the whole treasure island. Exactly. And that started the legend of the Ushimiya gold. What about the mark of the one-winged eagle that was supposedly pressed into the ingots? The one-winged eagle, or more precisely, an eagle of which only one wing is visible. What do you mean? You see it often in Europe, do you not? A crest or a coat of arms with an eagle spreading its wings on it. The flag of the Salo Republic also had an eagle. Or was it a hawk? At any rate, it had some bird of that type emblazoned on it. So the imprint was made too lightly, or else it was poorly done. Correct. They used a rough wartime press. It was probably supposed to look like the crest of an eagle spreading its wings. It was pressed at a slight slant, so half of it was too light to see. So half of the eagle spreading its wings disappeared, making it look like the one-winged eagle. Kinzo thought the seal in the gold of Beatrice, the one who had changed his fate, looked like a one-winged eagle. That must have been why he decided to make his own crest. If the imprint had been made correctly, it would have been the eagle of the Salo Republic's flag. Or could it have been the two-headed? No, of course not. Passing the night away with Kinzo-san in front of that massive pile of gold, drinking and wondering was truly an enjoyable experience. However, Kinzo-san didn't want people using that seal to figure out where the gold had come from. The gold he took outside was all repressed with the one-winged eagle design he had created. All he did was show you the gold. What a cheapskate. Of course, after he became immensely rich, Kinzo-san came to me once more, saying he'd pay me in full for the overdue medical expenses. Kit, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for coming by. Hey, Fuzzy Duck. Welcome. I hope you guys had a good stream. Thank you so much for entrusting me with your audience. Good to see you. Did you have a good stream? Thank you for giving Kit a shout out. Kit is an amazing VTuber as well. He plays Final Fantasy XIV as well as other games. He has similar taste to me. In fact, he's a big Umineko fan as well. And in fact, his model has lore that is inspired by Umineko. Hey Fur, good to see you. Welcome. Hope you had a good stream. Thank you for coming by. I'm Kiro, the frog-loving martial artist. We are close to the end of this stream, but we're kind of getting to the end of this little chapter here where one of the stories is being told about a character's backstory. So thank you for coming by. And I hope you guys make yourselves comfortable. And if you need to go relax or go to sleep, totally understand. Thank you. The amount he carried was a bit much for medical fees, though I did make sure to give him his change. And you've been friends ever since? Yes. Kinzo-san was extremely grateful to me for keeping a secret and concealing Beatrice. Grandfather always said that the oldest relatives in Odawara were a bunch of greedy liars. I'm sure he appreciated your strong sense of duty, Dr. Nanjo. I think we understand why a person like Grandfather came to trust you. I also had some interest in foreign countries, as well as a hobby of playing chess. Kinzo-san and I have gotten along well ever since. It was a friendship that built up gradually, but grew strong before we knew it. Yes, we've been friends for a very long time. People who deal with large amounts of money tend to be quite mindful of small amounts as well. When you refuse to accept anything more than the medical fees, that must have earned you his admiration. Ridiculous. I was just frightened by the large quantity of the money. I began to regret it later. It seems I've never really had guts. No need to worry there. Guts are one thing you've got no shortage of. You think so? Well, I appreciate the flattery. That wasn't flattery. For at least 1 whole year after Kinzo's death, Nanjo had taken part in hiding the secret of that death. Of course, Natsui must have given him some hush money. Still, there could be no doubt he'd had enough guts to withstand pressure from Kinzo's children for a long time, without slipping up once. Now that's something that takes real guts. That sense of duty must be part of your personality. Perhaps that is my only redeeming quality. I think grandfather was blessed with a good friend. So that was an interesting backstory. We finally got the full story from Kinzo. It ties together a lot of the things that we've probably been wondering about since, but it doesn't really solve too many of the mysteries. We've gotten a few extra clues though, like Will's confrontation with Shannon, and clues from Rosa's story. But I think you can kind of see why Kinzo had that long-lost love for Beatrice, right? And why he went kind of cuckoo after that. Let's take a note at the notes page since they've been updated now with our new characters. So again, this is the human side. You can see here, Leon's kind of taken the place of Erica, who's usually here as well. So Ushimiya Leon, the first child of Kraus and Natsui, Jessica is their second child, was given the silver ring of the successor to the family headship, and will succeed the position of family head upon turning 20. Mild, polite, and without any clear faults, except for being too young, Leon is a more suitable successor than anyone else and is adored by Kinzo. I think everything else is mostly the same for, like, these characters. Oh, also, to note here, it seems that Badler's not participating in this year's family conference, which is why he is nowhere to be seen here in this chapel, but he's still here on the family tree. Yeah, everything else is the same. Show us the hot guy, okay. So here we have the fantasy characters. So we have our new character, Willard H. Wright, who is again named after the mystery novelist and art critic Willard Wright, who also wrote rules for making mystery novels. A member of the SSVD, the 8th District Repentance Enforcement Agency of the Great Court of Heaven, an Inquisitor of Heresy and a first-class Archbishop, he is commonly known as Wright of the 20 Wedges, or Wizard Hunting Wright. He was an ace Inquisitor of Heresy in his youth, feared for being both ruthless and merciless in his work. However, at some point there was a change in his work attitude, and his previous flashy escapades became a thing of the past. His current style is often fickle, alternating between laziness and obsessive bursts of energy regarding mere trifles. By now, everyone has given up trying to understand him. Yeah, Wright of the 7 localized Ace Attorney games. Yeah, didn't he get the memo? Angels don't wear pants in this game, you're right. He has already filed his resignation and had it accepted. Only a few days remain before he'll lose the name of Wright. Of course, above him we have Bern Castell, who is the game master this time around. The Witch of Miracles and Miko to the Witch of Theater going. In the 7th game, she conducts Bito's funeral. She was defeated in the previous game, making her the loser. She has proclaimed she will tear out the guts of Bito's game to satisfy her irritation, and yet... Here we have Beatrice. Nothing's really changed about her description here. We have Maria. Attached to Beatrice, we have Virgilia and Ronov. Yop. I think it's just them, and then beneath them, we got the 7 sisters, of course. So yeah, things are getting interesting. I enjoy episode 7 because it does start piecing together things. It is a little bit weird because, like Will said, it's kind of a cobbled fragment of different fragments put together, so there are inconsistencies because they're trying to include a lot of the clues here. It's kind of where, I mean, I know we've already been doing the answers arc, but this is kind of where a lot of the answers start coming out if you haven't already figured them out already. The game's mostly been giving us clues about them, but now it's starting to outright tell us certain things. So we now know about Kinzo's past. I think we can start to feel, you know, some sympathy for him, understand his backstory and all that stuff. But at the same time, we have a lot of questions that are not yet answered yet. But I do like this episode a lot because I like Will. I think he's super cool. He's my favorite character in the series because, I mean, he's just a badass, and everyone else in the series, you know, has a lot of good and bad traits that make you want to love and hate them at the same time, usually. But Will's just cool. And I like his dynamic with Leon. I like the buddy cop dynamic we have going on here, where they're, you know, both trying to help each other out, but they're also, like, kind of sometimes, like, joking and teasing with each other. You find it interesting the sprites actually have lower halves, right? Because we only ever see the top half of their body. Yeah, Will is Kiro, and then Leon is Kieran, I guess. But yeah, interesting. We still don't know the mystery of Leon and who he really is, why he's here. But again, that'll be another mystery for another time. So my next stream will be on Friday. On Friday, Rain Code comes out, which is a game that is written by the writer behind Danganronpa, and so I'm very excited to play that. So we might take a slight break from Umineko, just because I want to finish Rain Code as fast as I can, because I'm sure I'm going to get really into the plot. But we will pick up Umineko again, and I would like to finish episode 7 and 8 before the end of the summer, hopefully, but we'll see, depending on how things come out. But I'm enjoying this. I'm glad you guys are getting into it too. Thank you so much for coming by and watching, especially all of you who might be lost, because obviously, you know, we're in episode 7 of 8, things are quite complicated, and there's a lot to unpack here, but I'm glad that episode 7 is a bit more self-contained than the other ones. Like, even if you don't know anything about Umineko, hearing Kinzo's story about their past was in itself an interesting story on its own. So I think it's really enjoyable. The rest of the episode 6 VODs will be up on YouTube as well, so you know, if you want to check out previous Umineko streams, they'll be up on YouTube, or previous games I've played, RPGs, mystery games, visual novel games, action games, you name it. But episode 7, we'll have to wait a little while before we start putting those VODs out, but they'll be up there. Yeah, thank you everyone, and thank you for the raids again, for everyone coming by. You can't believe Beatrice is actually the Golden Alchemist Cagliostro. They kind of have a similar personality trait between them, don't they? Cagliostro from Grand Blue, who is also, I really like her as well. Let's raid someone. Let's find someone who's not playing Final Fantasy 16. Let's say hi to our friend Nyx. He's playing Final Fantasy 14, and I think he's raiding or wrapping up raiding, one of the two. And I'll see you guys next time. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.